bird is thought to come from a classic British comedy moment, Monty Python's Dead Parrot sketch. But the phrase was first used in football by Liverpool defender Phil Thompson. He supposedly said it after Liverpool lost to Nottingham Forest in the 1978 League Cup final. Forest won thanks to a controversial penalty given away by a Thompson foul, even though it was actually outside the box. Poor guy said he felt sick as a parrot afterwards. Is there anything more embarrassing than a nutmeg in football? Weird name, but it's actually related to the trading of nutmeg, the spice. It was so expensive back in the day that corrupt exporters used to try and mix in a bit of wood in with the nutmeg to cut their costs. The term soon became slang. If you were nutmegged, it was because the person you were buying off had pulled a fast one on you. Jose Mourinho brought a lot of things to English football, and seems like one of those was the phrase "park the bus." He used it after his Chelsea side had been held to a goalless draw by Spurs in 2004. Tottenham had been extremely defensive, not trying to score, but making sure Chelsea couldn't either. Mourinho actually said, "They brought the bus and left the bus in front of the goal," as we say in my country. Finally, another phrase that actually comes from cricket. Footballers are said to have missed a sitter if they miss an easy chance. In the late 19th century, it was used in cricket to describe a moment when a fielder failed to take a catch which was so easy they should have been able to catch it sitting down. So there you have it, some of your favourite footballing cliches. And if you think this video is all over, well, it is now.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Welcome once again to Trans-Europe Express, your Sunday night fix, and that is the only word for it, of football from across the continent of Europe and indeed beyond. I'm Danny Kelly. With me for the next 3 hours, I'm delighted to say the man who you can obviously say, no Andy, no show. Andy Brassell is here with us. We've got a load to get through, of course. All the major stories from across the continent of Europe, including a really fantastically entertaining Derby d'Italia, which we'll tell you all about in a second. We'll be going around the leagues, of course we will. We'll start to preview all the games in the Champions League and the Conference and the Europa League. We'll have Mbappe watching. Tim Vickery is going to join us for a full half hour at midnight. At 11 o'clock. Talk about everything's going on in South America, where finally the World Cup qualifiers are over. And we now know that virtually everybody has, in fact, qualified. So this should be a belting show. We've got a poll for you as well. And I'll tell you about that in about 15 minutes' time. Till then, welcome one, welcome all. This is Trans-Europe Express. Trans-Europe Express. Trans-Europe Express. Okay, welcome aboard. Welcome, Andy. How are you?
Evening, Danny. I'm well. How are you?
Very, very good indeed. And Andy's slightly somber tone, I think, predicts what we're going to do next. We will get onto the football. Of course we will. But we'll start tonight by paying a little tribute to one of Britain's most beloved athletes.
Always wanted to be entertainment, put a show on for my fans.
A genuine, true working class, hero, an English warrior, and it's just sad, so sad.
Ricky was a great fighter, that had a 15-year career, over 48 fights. No one had the fan base that Ricky Hatton had.
Sometimes when boxers do hit the high notes and become world champions and make millions, they kind of separated themselves from the working class, and Ricky never did that.
He was such a nice bloke outside the ring. Everybody, they just loved him. He was a man of the people, Ricky. That's what he was.
The greatest achievement was always the fan base.
you know, and you know, it doesn't matter how much money you've put in the bank or how many belts you have in the trophy cabinet.
Not only did I meet him in 2007 when I went out to Vegas, after the fight, we were in a different hotel, it wasn't the MGM, and we went to play blackjack, and he rocked up and he just sat beside us, battered and bruised, and we all started a rendition of There's Only One Ricky Hatton.
Yeah, Ricky Hatton, Andy, you know, I'm a reasonably big fan of boxing. I don't know whether you are, but I don't think I've ever seen the announcement of somebody's death, which was quite so shocking, perhaps because he was still so young, and perhaps, I guess, because he had such an effect on people outside of boxing, because they mentioned it there again and again and again. Whatever his achievements in the ring, first of all, Ricky Hatton was a huge fan of football, and Manchester City in particular, but also he just seemed to be one of those people to whom the population took, you know?
Yeah, to be a star of that sort of level, an achiever of that sort of magnitude, and yet still have the common touch. I think that feeling that everyone talking about him sort of relays, the fact that it felt like he was your mate, whether you knew him or whether you didn't really. I think that really is a perfect tribute in itself. Obviously, yeah. It's extremely sad, but he was special for that very reason, in my opinion.
Yeah, and look, this is not the right time, but those of you who saw the recent documentary about him, clearly his post-boxing life had been quite troubled. He never quite made the transition back to what you might call civilian life, and you could see how it troubled people around him. And that's why the program we do here on Talk Sport about After the Lights Go Out is so important, because some people don't make that transition very easily. But of course, we are fans, and people who met him have been talking all day on Talk Sport. The people we have to pay most sympathy towards tonight are his friends and family, his direct loved ones, because this will have come, as I presume, a terrible, terrible shock to them. And Talk Sport and us individually send our condolences. The late, great Ricky Hatton, everybody. Okay, Andy, our job, of course, is to continue with the football coverage. And we'll start with the Derby d'Italia. And it's rare that I can read this scoreline out. Juventus 4, Inter Milan 3. And the game every bit as exciting as the scoreline suggests.
Yeah, maybe even more so, actually, with the twists and turns along the way. And, of course, the Derby d'Italia is always huge. And I think in a season where it's always difficult to predict the champions of Italy, but it's very difficult to know exactly where Juve and Inter are in terms of the title race. I don't think we still have a definitive answer after this game, because it was so open, it was so seesaw, and it was not just quantity of goals, it was quality of goals. There were brilliant goals as well. I can't remember seeing so many great goals in a game in a while. I think we'll leave that question to the end, maybe, about where these two teams are in terms of
specifically. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, you can do that if you want.
Yeah, thank you.
In the meantime, I think the first thing is to say already Juventus look like they've done the right thing in keeping Igor Tudor. Now, clearly that wasn't really their choice.
Let me jump in here, because the fairy tale unfolding in the other side of Milan. They're playing Bologna tonight, AC Milan. Guess who scored the opening goal of the game after an hour? He's 40 years of age. He's making his home debut. He doesn't get that many goals. Ladies and gentlemen, Luka Modric, everybody. How brilliant.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, the Bologna players are all making that face, says, come on, guys, he's 40. Yeah, brilliant. I'm just looking at the goal now. Let me see what happens here. Have I got this right? Yeah, I think I have, yeah. Yeah, the great man, they get the ball out wide right at Milan. The great man toddles into the penalty area. They square it to him, and with his first touch with his right foot, he sweeps, I think is the correct phrase. The ball is in the net. 1-0 to Milan. Luka Modric, the scorer.
And every Modric goal feels like an event, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't score so many of them, it is like a little mini lap of honour, I suppose. Now, I suppose we should probably update you on the other games as we're here now. So, Barcelona 1, Valencia 0. That's at the start of the second half. Fermin opening the scoring in the first half with a brilliant collective goal that was fantastically well finished. In France, Rennes 0, Lyon 1. Corentin Tolisso scored in the first quarter hour, and there is about 25 minutes to go in that.
Yeah, still a good half an hour still to go there in the San Siro. But as we said, Modric has put Milan 1-0 ahead. Andy, before we get on to how Christian Chivu is getting on with Inter Milan, we should talk about the fuss that was made about the Thuram brothers. A fuss by people who I think need to probably give their heads a wobble.
Yes, it's fair to say. Now, they exchanged goals. And when I say they exchanged goals, Inter came from 1-0 and 2-1 down to get it to 2-2, 2 Hakan Çalhanoğlu goals. And then Marcus Thuram put the visitors in front. Kefren equalised pretty quickly after that. And after Vasile Adzic, the teenager, had scored a brilliant winning goal in stoppage time, there was a check for a foul earlier on in the move. And while the VAR check was happening, a couple of journalists who really should know better were saying, well, weren't the two Thuram brothers having a chat and laughing during that wait? Imagine people enjoying sport. And even worse, family members enjoying sport. It's the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. And the sooner we can move on from that, the better.
Okay, so great win for Juventus, and we'll talk about where they are in a little second. For Inter, Christian Chivu's start, 2 defeats in 3. Of course, in a very competitive league there in Italy. What do you make of where Inter Milan are, Andy?
I think it's too early to panic.
Yes.
Just as it was too late to panic at halftime in the Champions League final last season. I think you look at them and you look at the team that Chivu picked, and he is keen, I think, to keep the magic of Simone Inzaghi going. I don't think there are any sweeping changes. Of course, he has a slightly different view on the game, and we'll see that as the season goes on. The Club World Cup was clearly something, especially with the way they finished last season, that they could have done without. And that's why, in a way, I was a little bit surprised that he went in with almost their top team from last season into this game. And I think it's particularly notable when you think 2 of their biggest and best performers, Jan Sommer and Lautaro Martinez, have been criticised for their contributions in this game. I mean, for me, Lautaro just looked exhausted, really, after making the long journey back from Argentina, where he's involved in the World Cup qualifiers. But Jan Sommer, there was a feeling with the long range goal, and I think you think particularly the Adzic winner, because it was quite high, sort of, I guess, 2/3 of the way up the goal, and he got hands to it and he couldn't keep it out. So, look, we want to focus on celebrating Adzic's big moment, but still, it was one of those ones that you're expecting a keeper of the quality of Jan Sommer to save.
Yeah, Andy, I'm now going to say something that I could have said any time in the past 10 years of Trans Europe Express. Çalhanoğlu's finishing from distance. Absolutely, he is one of the most regular goal scorers from 25 yards plus, isn't he?
He is, and if you remember, he's had quite an unsettled summer as well.
Yes.
And when Inter were being tired, cranky old men who needed their afternoon nap earlier in the summer, remember, he fought back pretty hard from what he perceived as what was criticism from Lautaro, his captain. And now he started the season really, really well as well. He didn't get that move to Galatasaray, which looked like it was on 2 different periods of the summer, but didn't happen, mainly because Inter weren't going to give one of their best players away, and why would they?
Sure.
But this is one of the games where you thought this is a big game, and their big player is stepping up here, and he is just a menace with his shooting still. Now, look, I think there are so many other ways in which he's vital to them. The way he sits in front of that defence, and he's got this incredible range of passing. The way that he's developed over his career, which there is still plenty of to go. By the way, look, even after this game and the way it happened, I think the way to judge it is just enjoy it. It was just a great showpiece. And for me, even though Inter have lost 2 out of 3 games so far, there was enough in the performance for me to suggest that they will still be contenders going forward in this league.
Listen, thank you very much indeed. It's also a bit early, I think, for us to discuss contenders for Serie A. Maybe we'll do that in a week or two, Andy. And later on, we will be talking about the rest of the stuff that's been going on in Italy. But next, we'll be looking at the stuff that's been going on, the football that's been happening in Germany, including, and I'm thanking Andy here in advance for an amazing piece of research, why Hamburg will be pleased to only ship 5 at Bayern Munich. That's next here on Trans Europe Express. Yeah, listen, don't forget our poll tonight, and it's on Twitter, /X, and the poll is, which English team will go the furthest in the Champions League this season? Now, given that those polls on Twitter only allow for 4 options, and that England has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you count them up, 6 teams taking part, we're going to risk upsetting some fans in London and the northeast of England, because the poll says which English team will go the furthest in the Champions League this season: Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal, or other. I think fans of Chelsea, Spurs and Newcastle can get other winning here, can't they? Simple, just go to @TalkSport on Twitter, @DannyKellyWords on Twitter, @AndyBrassel on Twitter, 2 S's and 2 L's, and vote. Thank you very much indeed. Andy, a thought just struck me. Have I missed a season in my mind, or is this the first time in the history of the European Cup and the Champions League that one city has had 3 clubs in the tournament?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, unless one of the minor teams in Madrid qualified, I can't imagine there's ever been as. So there we are. London has 3 teams in the Champions League. Just what UEFA want, isn't it? More domination from the Premier League. And let's turn our attention then to Germany.
But before we do, goals and red cards in the games we've been covering. So it's now Barcelona 3, Valencia 0. It was 1 when we last spoke. We've had Marcus Rashford's first assist for Barcelona. Played a ball into the box from the left. Copete thought it was going out. Rafinha was lurking behind him and put it in for 2-0. Then just after that, Fermin got his second goal, a bit of a pile driver from distance. Aguirre Balaga. It was one of those Jan Sommer ones. Got a hand to it, so it looked like he should have saved it. I'm not sure he could have saved that. It was a really good shot from Fermin, who's playing really well this evening. So 3-0 to Barcelona. And one of our poor English boys has had an early night. It is still Rennes 0, Lyon 1. Tyler Morton has just been rather controversially sent off. Late tackle on Meite, which clearly wasn't on purpose, which didn't even bring Meite over. But VAR saw nothing wrong with this and has not changed the decision.
Is this the same Tyler Morton who 15 minutes ago during the meeting you said is playing great?
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, French referee is going to French referee. So,
okay.
What are you going to do?
Listen, our headline for Germany is humbled Hamburg happy. Andy, they got beat 5-0 by Bayern. Teams will get beat 5-0 in Munich. That's the strength of Munich's team. But you told me at the start of the meeting, I love this statistic. I'm going to sit back and enjoy you pouring it into my ears again. They mightn't be too unhappy with losing 5-0.
Yeah, and it's easy to forget this, Danny, because, of course, it's 7.5 years since Hamburg last played away at Bayern in the Bundesliga, because they've been out of the Bundesliga for 7 years. So it ended up as 5-0 yesterday, as we said. But in their last 8 visits in the Bundesliga, they've conceded 50 goals. 50.
Ooh.
There was a 9-2 in there. 6-0, 8-0, quite a few in there, which is remarkable, really. So when they were 4-0 down at half-time, you're thinking, OK, this is going one way. But in keeping it to 5, they kept it under the average, which is not so bad.
They were 4 down at half-time, so they were probably looking forward to another absolute trossicking. OK. Now, in that game, Luka Vuskovic, the prodigious Croatian centre-back that's actually owned by Tottenham, but has been let out on loan for the 3rd successive season. I mean, he's still a teenager. We shouldn't forget that. Interesting. I mean, obviously, he went to Hamburg because he's got family connections there. His brother, Mario, is under contract at the club. He hasn't played for a long time because of the drugs ban. A drugs ban that the Hamburg fans think is completely fanciful, but there you have it. But interesting that even in the back of a 5-0 defeat, Vuskovic has been given huge responsibility for one so young and new to the club.
Yeah, he has. So he only trained a couple of times after the international break. He'd not met a lot of his new teammates, although, of course, as he said afterwards, there was the family connection. And with Hamburg, I think not being the strongest team in the league, he was pretty much told when he turned up, well, you may be a teenager, but you're the leader of the defence now, so off you go. Now, he spoke quite openly afterwards. You could tell he had that leadership vibe by saying, I wasn't really happy with the way I played Harry Kane. Obviously, he's one of the best there is, but I could have played him a bit better. I pledged to improve in weeks to come, which I thought was a really impressive way of dealing with it.
Yeah, well, given the way he's played in Belgium last season, I'm slightly surprised that Spurs feel they have the depth at centre back to let him go out on loan again. But of course, if it cements his progress over the last couple of years, perhaps it might be a brilliant thing. We shall see. Now then, Casper, help me with the pronunciation of Casper's surname, Andy Hoyland?
Hjulmand.
Hjulmand, thank you. The new manager of Bayer Leverkusen, replacing, of course, the hapless Erik ten Hag. He got his first win, but pretty eventful game, Andy.
It's fair to say. And look, talking of not having a lot of time to deal with your new players, they had 2 days of training before getting into the game. But they beat Eintracht Frankfurt. For me, at the moment, maybe the next best after Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga, 3-1. And it was a really impressive effort and spoke a lot for how well Hjulmand has got through to his players, certainly in terms of talking, if not in terms of doing, because even though the training pitch at Leverkusen is right next to the Bayer Arena, 2 days is 2 days. You can't really do that much, especially with some players who are tired, jet lagged in the case of the South Americans, etc., etc. But he did it really simply, I suppose. Got it down to the basics, made them compact, made them competitive to the sense that they finished the game with 9 men because the captain, Robert Andrich, was sent off in the second half. And the guy who was brought on a substitute to replace him, the new signing, Eki Fernandez, was also sent off right at the end. But with 2 brilliant Alex Grimaldo free kicks and a penalty, they got it over the line. And Mark Flecken, the goalkeeper who 3 games in, a bit like the reverse Ten Hag, has sort of appointed himself as the spokesman of the players after the game, said, it feels like I'm talking about youth football, but all the stuff he did was like youth football. Come on, lads, let's be united, let's get it together. It's not beautiful football yet. We expect it to be beautiful football at some point, but it was a really, really much needed result for them.
So, a 3-1 win for Bayer, 9 men, 2 different sendings off, including the player who was brought on to replace the player who got the first red card. You'd like to think that was the most dramatic game in Germany at the weekend. But, Andy, the story that unfolded in the game between Wolfsburg and Cologne, I stand back, I wave you onto the stage, I say, take it away, Andy.
Well, it was the 80th birthday party of Wolfsburg. So, you're expecting something spectacular. You've got the green and black smoke as they came out. You've got stars from the past coming out, like Grafich, who formed that brilliant strike partnership with Edin Dzeko when they won the title in 2009. You had Naldo coming back as well and helping to lead the team out. And they got themselves in a position, Wolfsburg, where they scored a goal in the 97th minute. And you think, OK, they're in a position here. Their captain, their longest-serving player, the man Max Arnold, who made more appearances than anyone else for the club, scored a brilliant free kick deep into stoppage time.
In the 99th minute, everybody get ready for the big party. We're 3-2 up. Our club legend has scored on the occasion of our 80th birthday. What could possibly go wrong, Andy?
Well, of course, there's the fact that a loan player who you have loaned to Köln comes on, Jakub Kaminski, and scores the latest goal in Bundesliga history, or the latest goal since they've started recording when exactly goals are scored in stoppage time, which they started doing in 1992. In the 14th minute of stoppage time, he scored the equaliser. All his teammates went nuts. He looked really sheepish. And at the end, Max Arnold, instead of celebrating with the home fans, was getting told off by the ultras for the fact that they still haven't won at home since January.
Yeah, it's a great story. And of course, the gods of football said, but isn't one of these on loan from Wolfsburg? Let him have a go. Go on then. Yeah. Listen, my star of the week is a player who shouldn't be at Dortmund, Maximilian Bayer. They spent the whole summer trying to get rid of Max. Very close to joining Brentford at one stage, as I recall. Well, he has decided not to let his failure to move, or indeed the club's intention of moving him on, affect his game. He scored the second as they won at Heidenheim yesterday, and looks like he's going to continue to develop as a player. And maybe someone else will be in for him again in January or next summer. Who's your star of the week in Germany, Andy?
Mine is going to be a debutant for Freiburg, Igor Matanovic, now just joined from Eintracht Frankfurt in the summer. Freiburg were sliding towards a home defeat for most of the afternoon, 1 goal down at home to Stuttgart. He came on with 12 minutes left to play his first 12 minutes for the club, scored twice and they won 3-1. That's a pretty good first impression, I would say.
Yeah, listen, thank you for that. So we'll move to France next, and Andy will tell you about, look, sometimes it's hard to have sympathy for Paris Saint-Germain, but as we head towards the opening raft of fixtures in the Champions League, Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday, loads of games live here on Talk Sport, it's fair to say that Paris Saint-Germain have got an old-fashioned injury crisis. More on that next here on Trans-Europe Express. You listen to me, Danny Kelly, and him, Andy Brassell. Yeah, this afternoon came the terrible news that Ricky Hatton has passed away, and you can join Gareth A. Davis, Spencer Oliver and Paul Smith on a special edition of the TalkSport Daily podcast as the boys pay tribute to one of Britain's greatest and best-loved fighters, Ricky the Hip and Hatton. You can watch the podcast this evening, right now in fact, over on the TalkSport Boxing YouTube channel, or you can listen from 5 a.m. tomorrow morning on your favourite podcast provider. Meanwhile, Andy, in the San Siro, Milan 1-0 up through that goal by Luka Modric are not having it all their own way. Bologna have just hit the post. Santi Jimenez hitting the post. He's just been replaced in the last couple of seconds by Christopher Nkunku for the last 5 minutes. The referee is waving cards about, and I suspect he's about to give a penalty here to Milan. I'm not certain. He's onside. We'll see what they do. Milan still leading by that goal to nil, as I say. And plenty of drama in the last few minutes of that game with Bologna hitting the post. Okay, listen, thank you very much indeed.
Talking of drama, it's a big ending to Rennes versus Lyon in Brittany. As we said, Lyon were 1-0 up. There was that red card for Tyler Morton, which he was very, very unhappy with, took his time getting off the pitch. Since then, Rennes have equalised. A goal that was scored by Anthony Roucault that was... It took about 4.5 minutes to verify by VAR. Might have been offside. Might have been a foul on Remy Descamps, the Lyon goalkeeper, who got kicked on the hand. In the end, neither. And so we've got 9 minutes of stoppage time there, and it's 1-1.
Okay, well...
Barcelona lead 4-0. Rafinha has scored a second. And it's clear that Valencia could not get off the pitch quickly enough. We're talking of a Gary Neville era-esque battering for Valencia at Barcelona.
I saw some people comparing Gary's record at Barcelona with that of Ruben Amorim's record at Manchester United. Oh, it was savage stuff when you saw it all written down, the number of non-wins. They're still reviewing something, I think a penalty appeal in this game between Milan and Bologna. I'll let you know which way that goes in just a second. So we're talking about French football next, Andy. Our headline,
and we've got a possible winning goal in Rennes. Rennes lead 2-1. Meite looked like he was running the ball out of play, smashed it from a really tight angle, and it squeezed past Remy Descamps. Rennes lead 2-1.
Okay, the referee is now running towards the monitor. I think we know what that means. Unless they're looking at something to do with violent conduct or something. I'm not quite sure what is going on there. Okay, let's move on, and I'll come back to that, Andy. Setting the Barcola high is our headline for France, because Bradley Barcola played into the ground last year by PSG, subject of some criticism and questioning, back to his very best in a game against Lens, although a game which finished a 2-0 win for PSG, but a very costly win.
Yeah, 2 brilliant goals by Barcola to start off with. And, you know, sometimes I do feel the French media and fans are a little hard on him. He started last season brilliantly, of course, goal-scoring wise. And then, as you said, looked a little bit weary by the end of it. And, of course, he was kind of bumped from the team by Kvaratskhelia. So, at the moment, he's desperately needed, and he will be going forward. So those 2 great goals, he was good for France as well in the international break. And they're going to need him even more, because not just the fact that Desiree Doué and Ousmane Dembélé are injured.
Andy, you can see me on the screen. People can't. I'm grinning from ear to ear. The penalty wasn't given in Milan's favour. Max Allegri has taken such umbrage that he's been sent off. And he has he's taken off his suit jacket, thrown it to the ground.
I think he stole that move from Volta-Mazzari, just so you know.
After all of that, it remains a Milan 1, Bologna 0. And whichever of the Milan players went down for the penalty is also being booked for diving. Very, very good fun in the end, towards the end of that game. Bradley Barcola, 2 lovely goals. Reminder of what a great player he is when he's properly rested for a young player and all the rest of it. But last week we talked about the injuries that will keep Desiree Doué and Dembélé out of certainly the Champions League game against Atalanta this week. But they've got a whole list now of other doubts, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. So we talked about Barcola being really needed at the moment with Doué and Dembélé out. They lost 3 players today, one of whom was Kvaratskhelia, who must be a doubt for that Champions League opener against Atalanta. He went off sort of holding his calf. And then there was an injury to Kang-in Lee, who was starting the game in midfield because Fabian Ruiz wasn't fit enough. And then Lucas Beraldo, the centre-back, was stretchered off. So, look, I know it's difficult to say with PSG's resources, they're stretched. To re-emphasise, they played every possible game last season. And so it doesn't seem a massive shock that these things are happening to them. It doesn't seem just pure chance, you know. And they are going to be stretched over the next little while. So remember, they've got that Champions League opener, then they have to go away to Marseille next weekend. It's a busy period for them. There's no doubt about that. They can't afford any more injuries at all. By the way, now 3-1 to Rennes in stoppage time. Meite, having got that second goal, got a third one as well 2 minutes later, a header from the 6-yard line.
Yeah, let me just tell you, it is all happening at the San Siro now, Andy. Just to clear that up, Christopher Nkunku had just come on the field 30 seconds after coming on for Jimenez. He went over in the Bologna box. The referee booked him for diving. Then the VAR looked at the thing, and the referee went over to the monitor, presumably being told there's a penalty there, my son. He decided to stick with his original decision. That sent Max Allegri into an absolute harebrain, and he got sent off. And now, just to add spice to it, they've decided they need an extra 7 minutes to finish the game. Both sets of players, I think it's fair to say, on edge, looking at the way the tackles are going in now. Bologna, of course, can see this as, getting off the hook and having a chance to equalise. It remains, though, 1-0 to Milan. That goal by Luka Modric, who incredibly, given that they've used all 5 of their substitutes, remains on the pitch. Mike Maignan had to come off injured, Andy, after about an hour. Let's hope that's not too serious as well. Which takes us then to Marseille. Obviously, insanely busy on the last day of the transfer window. Tell us about their victory over Lorient, who, after a promising start to the season, have been on the end of a couple of whackings now. And could it be, Andy, when you finished your report on the match, could we be seeing the start of Marseille actually starting to stabilise?
Well, you know what? Nothing says stabilising like 5 debutant starters, does it?
Hooray!
And, that's where they were.
Yeah, but some very good players among those. They're not picking up riffraff, are they?
Yeah, some really good players, and 3 players scoring. 2 of those debutants scoring for Marseille. Another player scoring his first goal for Marseille as well, a new signing from the summer. So once Mason Greenwood got it underway, you had a brilliant second goal by Angel Gomez, a volley from just outside the box, and then you have a Benjamin Pavard goal. You have, I know it's amazing, Benjamin Pavard now plays for Marseille, extraordinary World Cup winner. But there you go. He explained it during the week by saying, "My wife is from Marseille." Oh, okay, there had to be a reason,
That's
right?
it then.
And you had a long-range one to see it over the line by Naif Agar, who, of course, has just joined from West Ham, having been out on loan last season. But there were the makings of a really good team there. I guess the shock was just seeing that 11 and thinking how different it was. And we knew that would be the case because we knew they would be busy on the final day of the transfer window. How different that was from the last game before the international break when they lost at Lyon. That they could pick almost half a different team.
Angel Gomez as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and a great goal, as I said, by him as well. So, it'll be really interesting to see this week how they go in the Champions League. Of course, they need that bigger squad. There's no doubt about that. And it's always a balance between, keeping what made you good last season and the fact that they didn't have any European football last season, so they clearly needed a much bigger squad. So I think it's easy to mock them in terms of turnover and say, this is what Marseille do. But really, it's a little bit like when you think of the expanded calendar of games, it's not that different to when you have a team coming up to the Premier League who all of a sudden have to, sign players to replace loanees that they had before and stuff like that. Of course, Aubameyang's come back, which I think is really big for Marseille too. And he'll make his Champions League debut for them away at Real Madrid, which, as we know, will be an absolutely massive deal for them. But, any sort of relative calm for Marseille is to be seized. And they were pretty impressive on Friday night.
Now, Andy, this it is not in the nature of Trans Europe Express to boast, nor indeed do we get much to boast about. But a transfer that we have long predicted, a future transfer, has actually come to pass.
I mean, to be honest, I don't think Nostradamus needs to be too worried. Emanuel Omega going from Strasbourg to Chelsea, as he will be in summer 2026, should not be a shock to anyone. As we pointed out for a while, this is a guy who's only 22, centre forward with an absolutely massive future, who I think will end up being a starter for the Netherlands a couple of years down the line. Great movement, 2 good feet, and officially a Chelsea player from this week. So, I mean, from Liam Rosenior's perspective, I guess it's a bit bittersweet because, of course, it really says a lot for his work that Omega is at the point where Chelsea think, OK, let's get him from next season. So I think a lot of that has to do with Rosenior's coaching, even though there was clearly a lot there beforehand. And I think we could see him ending up at Chelsea at some point in the future for a long time, as we said. But, I mean, he's got to replace a centre-forward that they have no real way of replacing. And I say this even with the fact that Strasbourg have a lot of resource in the context of current French football, where, of course, financially it's not in a great place. But they've been able to go out there and spend 150 million almost on players this summer. So they'll find a replacement from somewhere. But I mean, it's just fortunate he didn't go this summer because, of course, they lost Dilma Bakwa to Nottingham Forest. He's a fantastic young player as well. So I think doing without both of those would have been tough. But I guess we'll be obliged to talk about Omega even more, as if we weren't enthusiastic about him enough already in the rest of this season.
Who's your star of the week in France, Andy?
My star of the week is Pierre-Lys Melou, who made a move at last from Brest this summer to Paris FC. Made his almost immediate return to Brest today, and he was really involved. Got an assist, gave away a penalty, got booked, got booed a little bit as well, but ended up going back to his new home in the capital with a 2-1 win.
Mine is a very familiar name. My star of the week is Mbappe. Of course, it's Ethan, the younger brother of Kylian, who signed for Lille last summer, spent most of the season being injured. But he came on today and scored the winner in stoppage time against Toulouse. And if I tell you that it was a finish of which his brother might be proud, you can understand what a good goal it was. They finished in Milan, Andy. And imagine if 10 years ago I'd said, they finished in Milan, Andy, and Luka Modric has scored the winner for AC. How mad would that have been? But that's the story. The 40-year-old Croatian genius, there's no other word for it, has scored the winning goal in what was a very even and actually, quite looking at the corner of my eye, a very enjoyable match. Listen, thank you very much indeed for that. When we come back, we'll talk about that game and much else besides as we turn our microscope onto Italy. Yeah, we're going to talk about everything that's going on in Italy in a second, Andy. But first, I think you have to report on another goal from Barcelona and Valencia getting what I'm going to describe as a Gary Neville-style whacking.
Yeah, it's getting to that point. So they've got stoppage time to survive without getting to 7. They're 6-0 down. I mean, it's rough if you're having a bad night anyway and they bring Rafinha and Robert Lewandowski off the bench, which is exactly what Barcelona have done. Of course, no Lamine Yamal tonight with an injury, so it could have been a lot worse. But Lewandowski just had a second goal verified by VAR. Typical dinked Lewandowski finish. Productive evening for Marcus Rashford, but yeah, he came off just before Lewandowski came on, and now it is 6-0 to Barcelona. Also full time in France. Rennes 3, Lyon 1.
We shall have a very, very sensible and sensitive discussion about Lamine Yamal's injury a little later in the programme. Well, I've kind of given you the full lowdown on the game between Milan and Bologna, which has just ended. A goal for the great Luka Modric, which decided the match on the hour. Then a real big kerfuffle about 3 minutes from the end, where Christopher Nkunku, who had just come on the pitch, replacing Jimenez, went over looking for a penalty. The referee booked him. Then he was told to go to the screen, which we assume meant that it would be overturned. There would be a penalty, but he stuck to his guns. So the yellow card stayed for Christopher Nkunku, and there was no penalty for Milan, which caused Max Allegri to implode, and he was sent off and protested by throwing his very beautifully tailored Italian jacket to the floor. But another important win for a Milan team looking to kind of bed themselves in, Andy. But our headline is "It's not you, it's United," because Napoli continue to look in the early stages, Andy, the sort of the form of the field, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. And I think you're looking not just at the maximum points, but the way they played at Fiorentina yesterday. Now, we talked about the back and forth of Juventus versus Inter. There was never any doubt over the winner in Florence. Napoli were great, took an early lead through a Kevin De Bruyne penalty. And then Rasmus Højlund scored a fantastic goal to put them 2-0 up. And immediately he's clicked. He talked afterwards about what an incredible opportunity it was to go to Napoli. It always felt like United were keener to get rid of him than he was to leave. And maybe he was just waiting for an opportunity that probably wasn't going to come on his form of the last couple of years. But really, the Romelu Lukaku injury has changed everything. It meant they had to go back into the market for a striker when they thought they'd completed their transfer market. And then he comes into the team and a really supremely confident finish straight away. So, you know, when they say, "It's not me, it's you," well, it's not him, it's United, I think is clear here, because he promises to just be the next in a long list of players who've looked way short of it at Manchester United, but have managed to go on and succeed somewhere else. I mean, what does that say for United, not just in the Amorim regime, but I think in successive regimes of United? If a player goes out there and just becomes the player that he always should have been, the player that United thought they were buying, it's a good deal for United until he has a good season and they pick him up for a fee that looks cheap.
Yes, and of course, it's the lack of service, isn't it? And so I suspect that Rasmus will be getting a text tonight from Benjamin Sesko saying, "Yeah, I get it now." Another player who's in a kind of, we hear about lofts and bomb squads and all the rest of it, but definitely in some kind of nebula stroke purgatory, Ademola Lookman, Andy.
Yeah, he's in a really weird situation at the moment. Now, just to get it out of the way, Atalanta looked great without him today. He wasn't in the 11 or in the squad at all. They won 4-1 against Lecce, played very, very well indeed, despite the fact that they've lost other forward players. Of course, you've still got these injuries to Gianluca Scamacca, the top scorer from last season, Matteo Retegui, who looked so brilliant on international duty for Italy. Of course, he went to Saudi. So they really could have done with Lookman at this moment, especially when you're a fairly, if I may say, uninspiring, even if it makes sense, appointment to replace Gasperini in Ivan Juric. But Juric has started well. People talked about his connection with Gasperini and how he would attempt to carry on his work. The early signs are decent, it has to be said. And of course, he did really good work before it all went so horribly wrong at Roma and Southampton successively last season. But I think maybe the quote of the weekend we had was from Ivan Juric when he said, I shouldn't have to beg him to come back into the team.
Which is so brutal.
It's quite damning on Ademola Lookman. Look, I'm a massive fan. I really think he's one of the best players in Europe. He's the reigning
African footballer of the year,
as we keep saying, and we need to keep saying, just to remind people who maybe have an image of Premier League Ademola Lookman and think, oh, well, is he that good? Yeah, he is that good. He really is that good, and he's proved it in European finals even. And so I feel sorry for him that he didn't get that move. I think part of it is because he's in Italy and he's rated more highly in Italy than he is in more moneyed markets. So I think that has been part of the reason that it hasn't gone through. But ultimately, he's in a position now where he's not playing. He doesn't appear to be in a position where he's ready to play. We don't know about physically, but maybe not mentally, because he's certainly not banging the manager's door down. That's what Juric would have us believe. And they're starting the Champions League again this week. They're going to PSG and he won't be playing. I think that is an awful shame.
Well, and you could add to that, the AFCON is now on the near horizon, isn't it? It's not like it's a million miles away. Absolutely. My star of the week, I'm never going to underrate a big lump of a centre forward, is Gio Simeone, who got his first goal for Torino, his latest club. That was away to Roma. They won 1-0. Roma really ought to have won the game. They were by far the dominant side. But Simeone started the move and finished it himself. And he's my star of the week. Who is yours, Andy?
Well, we talked about Atalanta needed to find goals from somewhere. Charles de Ketelaere, brilliant game today against Lecce. Scored twice. And at moments like that, when he's on the ball, you think, well, they don't need anyone else, do they?
Listen, thank you very much, Steve. Now, I know you don't think it's possible, given the amount of stuff we got into that first hour of Trans Europe Express, but hours 2 and 3, I can tell you, on the best authority, are even better. So stick around here for Trans Europe Express on Talk Sport.
wondered why Erling Haaland scores a hat-trick instead of just 3 goals? Why Darwin Núñez is said to have missed a sitter rather than just missing a really easy shot? Or why on earth defenders are said to park the bus? Let's break down some of our favourite football cliches. First, let's talk hat-tricks. The term comes from cricket back in the 1800s. Any bowler who managed to get 3 successive wickets used to be rewarded with a hat from their club. Next up, if you see a skillful tackle, an athletic save or a 40-yard screamer, you might say these things are out the top drawer. That's because back in Victorian times, if you had wealth, valuable stuff, you kept it in the top drawer of your dresser, so loaded families became known as top drawer. Remember the last time your team left you feeling as sick as a parrot? The image of the sick bird is thought to come from a classic British comedy moment, Monty Python's Dead Parrot sketch, but the phrase was first used in football by Liverpool defender Phil Thompson. He supposedly said it after Liverpool lost to Nottingham Forest in the 1978 League Cup final. Forest won thanks to a controversial penalty given away by a Thompson foul, even though it was actually outside the box. Poor guy said he felt sick as a parrot afterwards. Is there anything more embarrassing than a nutmeg in football? Weird name, but it's actually related to the trading of nutmeg, the spice. It was so expensive back in the day that corrupt exporters used to try and mix in a bit of wood in with the nutmeg to cut their costs. The term soon became slang. If you were nutmegged, it was because the person you were buying off had pulled a fast one on you. Jose Mourinho brought a lot of things to English football, and seems like one of those was the phrase "park the bus." He used it after his Chelsea side had been held to a goalless draw by Spurs in 2004. Tottenham had been extremely defensive, not trying to score, but making sure Chelsea couldn't either. Mourinho actually said, "They brought the bus and left the bus in front of the goal," as we say in my country. Finally, another phrase that actually comes from cricket. Footballers are said to have missed a sitter if they miss an easy chance. In the late 19th century, it was used in cricket to describe a moment when a fielder failed to take a catch which was so easy they should have been able to catch it sitting down. So there you have it, some of your favourite footballing cliches. And if you think this video is all over, well, it is now.
Yeah, welcome back everybody to Trans Europe Express with me, Danny Kelly, and him, Andy Brassell. Before we go on with the football, listen to this. This is TalkSport's Harry Durham catching up with Manchester City fans at full time after their 3-0 derby victory over United, as they all wanted to pay tribute to the one, the only hitman, Ricky Hatton.
Met him in the nightclub once, and such a nice bloke. It was incredible, absolute Mancunian right down to the bone. He was, but he was just really gracious, really kind of unassuming, really kind of genuine guy.
And there's only a couple of people that can really bridge a gap in a city. It doesn't come down to football clubs, even though Ricky was a Manchester City fan. Yeah. He had respect from Manchester United. He was Manchester, wasn't he?
They were all cheering, clapping, weren't they, today, all the United fans, which is fair play to them, really.
Look, I've been to Vegas, I've watched him fight in Vegas, and he's just such a nice man, humble man, and I'm so sad for him. I'm so sad.
So there used to be a pub on the way down before the Manchester, what was it called, Eastlands? And he used to sit at the bar and chat to people, and just the nicest guy. Anybody would ask for his picture or his autograph, and he was always happy to do everything.
He was just man of the people.
Yeah, a decent working man, weren't he, really?
Great legend. There will never be another Ricky Hatton.
I remember him as a City fan. I don't know. I've watched him on the telly as a boxer, but I've met him in Mary D's up the road here and here in the Etihad. He was a lovely guy. But I used to see him, and It's so sad. It really is. Because you don't expect it of anybody, you know, do you? Especially today. No, it was sad. Honestly, I haven't got words, mate. I'm filling up just thinking about it.
Yeah, genuine expressions of shock and grief there for the passing of Ricky Hatton. And I think you got from those few interviews, the fact that he was such a visible presence around the city of Manchester, not just at the Etihad, but wider as well. And again, I said it an hour ago, I make no apologies for repeating myself. Our thoughts here individually and collectively at TalkSport go out to Ricky's friends and family, because this is just terrible, terrible news. Meanwhile, back in the world of sport, I'm telling you, Andy, this for my own benefit, because I don't think you follow the American football the way I do. Right now in Kansas, we're having a repeat of last season's Super Bowl, a huge game, even so early in the season. And Kansas City, who've won 2 of the last 3 Super Bowls, are playing Philadelphia, who won the most recent one. And the Eagles, Philadelphia Eagles, are 7 points to 3 up as we head towards half-time in that one at the Arrowhead Stadium. Now, here on TalkSport, it's time for this.
Carrière le Paris Saint-Germain, Mbappé! Mbappé! Little give and go, Mbappe's in! Oh, Chouchou! He scored twice in 2 minutes! Tête de Kylian Mbappé. Allez, Kylian!
Actually, before we talk about this very briefly, Andy, I can see... Now, look, this is all being... These days, we're all in vision. If you can watch on your smartphone, you can watch on your smart TV, you can watch on YouTube, the TalkSport programmes. I notice in our different ways we're using the background to the visuals we can see to reflect certain things. You've always got a very impressive collection of football shirts. Did you put Modric up after he scored that goal?
No, he's been up all week.
Okay, very good. Well, he's got a Luka Modric shirt, and those of you who happen to be looking on any of those platforms I mentioned, you can see that behind me. It's a kind of tribute to Ricky Hatton. I've got a framed cover of, I think, the greatest magazine cover of all time. Esquire magazine, not noted for its social progressiveness when the American authorities put Muhammad Ali in prison for refusing to go to fight in Vietnam. They did, in my opinion, the greatest magazine cover ever. It's a picture of Muhammad Ali with his body pierced like Saint Sebastian by a number of arrows, no names, no writing on the cover. It absolutely shocked the world. And when I was a magazine editor, it's one of the things that absolutely inspired me to try and do better every day with the work. And while it's nothing to do with Ricky Hatton, it's just a little bit of boxing memorabilia there to pay tribute to the great man. Let's move on then with Mbappe watch. And Andy, despite a sending off that you'll tell us about, Real Madrid continued their excellent start to the season against Real Sociedad. But I think more noticeably, Kylian Mbappe, maybe for the first time since his move, looks exactly... He was very good last season, but now he's starting to look like peak Mbappe.
I think that's the thing, isn't it, Danny? Sometimes it's just a feeling. We can look at numbers, but we're sometimes not convinced. Now, if you look at Mbappe's numbers for a first-timer at a huge club last season, whatever his stature before, even though he arrived as a World Cup winner and as someone who'd scored a hat-trick in another World Cup final, it was a really good first season statistically, but there was a feeling of it was a bit of a letdown because Real Madrid finished way short of the team objectives that they wanted to.
Absolutely.
Now, not just because they've won all the games so far. In terms of the eye test, Mbappe is back being real Mbappe this season. I say this thinking of his first goal yesterday against Real Sociedad, where we've seen it so many times before. He gets a sniff of blood and he's away. He gives the defender a 10-yard start, absolutely steams past him, never any doubt that he's going to finish. And that got Real Madrid off on the right foot. But his creativity also helped them after they hit a bump in the road. I mean, Real Sociedad is one of their least pleasant away games of the season because there are not that many places where the whole stadium hates Real Madrid, but this is definitely one of them. For a number of historical reasons. It's not that pleasant for Real Madrid, and it's been tough for them and for Barcelona to a lesser extent going to Real Sociedad. Obviously not the greatest Real Sociedad side this season, but they had a bit of a setback when Dean Huijsen was sent off rather harshly, I thought, for a last man foul. I don't think he was the last man. I think there was cover, and the Real Sociedad forward was absolutely miles from goal. So it was a bit of a weird decision, but nevertheless stood. And Mbappe helped them get back on an even keel. You know, he helped them score a second goal. It was set up really smartly for Arda Güler, who's looking great, by the way.
Well, this is what I wanted to jump in there, Andy, and say we've got to discuss two other players. One who didn't play, we'll get on to Trent Alexander-Arnold in a second, and one who did. Arda Güler is 20 years of age. Now, of course, he played in the Turkey side that got absolutely obliterated by Spain at home in the recent World Cup qualifiers. So I dare say he's had plenty of jip in the dressing room for the past few days. But with each passing day, he looks more and more like the creative force that Madrid probably needed and might have been tempted to go out and spend 60, 70, 80 million pounds on, but they've got him there, you know, he's on hand.
Well, they've got two in the team at the moment because they've got him and Brahim Diaz, who started the game yesterday as well. Now, this is in a Jude Bellingham-less world for them at the moment. Now, of course, he's going to come back a bit like Luis Enrique from the other side of the Real Madrid-Barcelona divide. He's had a bit of a sore shoulder. Of course, we saw Luis Enrique on the touchline for PSG today with his arm in a sling, still being as involved as he normally is, and having a peerless first touch when the ball flew off the pitch, even though he only had one arm to balance himself with. But I think it'll be really interesting to see how Real Madrid resettle when Bellingham comes back, because for me it doesn't feel like it's their definitive shape under Xabi Alonso. You know, maybe they move to three at the back. We'll have to wait and see. For the moment, they look comfy with four, and of course you have the fact that they have a midfielder who can very naturally slot into a back three to make it a back three, and Aurelien Tchouameni. So that's an advantage for them. But at the moment, you're right. You look at their midfield, and there's a lot of quality in there. You look at Tchouameni, you look at Bellingham, you look at Valverde. But was there a dribbler? Was there someone who could open it up with the last pass? Arda Güler is emphatically proving he's that. And I always remember him, and I've brought this up before, and I'll bring it up again. The bit at Wembley where he was stood next to Carlo Ancelotti, and he realised that he wasn't coming on in the Champions League final at Wembley, and he had a face like thunder, and he had a little strop. But there's two ways of looking at that. A, know your place, which is often the way that it's thought of at Real Madrid. Or B, what hunger? The fact that ever since he arrived, he never thought, I'm making up the numbers here. He never thought, I'm getting loaned out. He thought, I'm going to get in this team, and I'm going to be a key player in this team. And he's believed that since the moment he arrived. There's loads of easier places that he could have gone to when he left Fenerbahce. But he went head first thinking, I'm going to become a big player for Real Madrid. And that's absolutely what he's done. Now, if we're talking about a reordering of things when Bellingham comes back, you best believe it won't be him being sacrificed. It'll probably be Brahim, which is a shame for him because he never lets Real Madrid down. But Arda Güler has started this season fantastically at a moment when they've really, really needed him to as well.
Yeah, I was boring somebody who didn't really care about this the other day about it, and well, you know, Andy, I can do
story
that
of my life
happily. Yeah, and when they asked me to explain what I was meaning, I said the thing is, Güler creates chances, Bellingham forces chances. There's a subtle difference in what they do. Absolutely. Not making any chances again today. Trent Alexander-Arnold once again confined to the bench, but he's got a problem, hasn't he? Because he's competing for a first team place. Not a problem that's replicated, in my opinion, in England, but with Real Madrid, the trouble is for him, he's a great player, Trent Alexander-Arnold. I have no doubt whatsoever that he's going to be an absolute revelation at Real Madrid for years to come. But he's competing with Dani Carvajal, who is the club captain, a legend, count them, 6 times Champions League winner. And I'm wondering whether the manager just trusts him a bit more defensively. That old thing for Trent Alexander-Arnold, because he hasn't been picked for an away game yet.
Yeah, not from the start. And he came on for Dani Carvajal near the end of this game, but just to help see the game out and give Carvajal a bit of a breather. Remember, he's still coming back from a pretty big injury. But it's not just that Carvajal is defensive security and an experienced player. It's in many ways he's the heart and soul of Madrid. Remember, he was the captain starting the game yesterday as well. So he's got a symbolic value as well as a playing value. Now, it was interesting seeing, of course, Lucas Vazquez play his first game for Bayer Leverkusen this weekend and looked pretty good. Of course, Carvajal was there before, so it's almost like a well-trodden path, I suppose you could say, for Madrid fullbacks. But clearly, he took one look at Alexander-Arnold and Carvajal and thought, yeah, I'm not getting in the middle of this. I think I might go and find somewhere a little bit more safe where I can play some games. And look, it's a massive challenge that Trent Alexander-Arnold has taken on. There were much easier decisions for him to make. He didn't make them. He chose Real Madrid, and I think he's to be applauded for that. But yeah, I think the way that they're bleeding him in is quite sensible. Now, of course, I think he's realised, because he's super intelligent anyway, I think you look at his charm offensive in terms of speaking Spanish from the beginning, it's because he's smart enough to know that he is taking on a club legend. And ultimately, he's going to replace that club legend. But in the meantime, Xabi Alonso has really got to have the, I suppose, social adeptness to manage that transition very slowly, as well as managing the transition of Trent Alexander-Arnold to Spanish football.
Listen, thank you. I could just tell you, in one thing I'm watching at the corner of my eye, the Kansas City Chiefs are making some progress here against the Philadelphia Eagles. Travis Kelce has just caught the ball and done a great run. I like to call him the great Travis Kelce, but these days he's just known as Mr. Taylor Swift, isn't he? More soon, very, very soon here on Talk Sport. Yeah, now listen, breakfast returns tomorrow morning from 6 a.m. with Jeff Stelling and Ali McCoist, as they'll be joined by a host of guests to look back on a huge weekend in the Premier League. That's breakfast with Jeff Stelling and Ali McCoist from 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. Again, Andy, for my own benefit and a handful of people listening, a half-time in the rematch of the Super Bowl, and indeed the home team, Kansas City Chiefs, have taken a 10-0. They've taken the lead against Philadelphia after Patrick Mahomes, with all due respect to Derrick Henry, Josh Allen and all the rest of them, still the best attacking player in American football, had got a touchdown right by the pylon. I'll stop giving you updates from that in a while, because I suspect people want to hear about European football. And
or do they want to hear about Germany winning the Eurobasket? I mean, what a final that was against Turkey.
Is that basketball?
Yeah, it is. Germany are now the World Cup winners and the European champions. Very, very impressive.
Okay, very good. Now, listen, our next stop is Spain, where our headline is "No Place Like Home," because, Andy, in the confusion, difficulty, the whole business with the Spanish authorities, Barcelona, who have got they've got one big project going on the new camp. They're also playing in the old Olympic Stadium. But they've ended up playing in what looks to me like a Lego ground. What's happening?
A Lego ground named after Johan Cruyff, actually. The Estadio Johan Cruyff, it's the home of their B team. It holds 6,000, and they ended up finally playing their first home game of the season on September 14th, today. They ended up finally having Marcus Rashford, therefore making his home debut, which was pretty successful. He didn't score, but he did set one up for Rafinha. Now, before we get on to Barcelona 6, Valencia 0, and I fear I may have taken poor old Gary Neville's name in vain, because realistically, if we're going with the theme of earlier in the show, Valencia have Hamburged it. You know, Barcelona is their Munich, essentially, because after this 6-0 tonight, they have conceded 18 goals on their last 3 visits to Barcelona. Different stadiums, but still same result. It turns out wherever they go in Barcelona to play FC Barcelona, let's not bring Espanyol into this, Valencia are going to be on the end of a thwacking, and they were tonight. Obviously not helped by the fact that they're in the position, Barcelona, despite having no Lamine Yamal to bring Rafinha and Lewandowski off the bench, they scored 2 each. But of course, the 6,000 who got to see it tonight were pretty lucky. I think it's fair to say, because it is very much a hot ticket, and a ticket that was only really available to buy at the end of the week, because it was only confirmed that they wouldn't be able to play at Camp Nou earlier this week, that they would be playing it at the Estadio Johan Cruyff. Of course, they're still hoping to be in there for the game on the 1st of October against PSG in the Champions League. As I said before, I feel it is unlikely they will be in Camp Nou, even a small-scale Camp Nou, 27,000 it would be in the first instance for that. But if we're talking about getting used to playing in like smaller stadiums, that was certainly helpful tonight. So of the members that could buy a ticket, there were 16,151 who were told on Wednesday that they would be eligible to apply for a ticket. And there would be a draw, and the winners of this draw would be announced at Friday at 10 a.m. Now, look, I know we made fun of the fact that earlier in the season, Marcus Rashford could only make his La Liga debut when he was confirmed to be registered at 10:30 on the morning of the day that they played at Mallorca. But this is very much in keeping, I guess, with the theme of the season. So it's all about knocking out the tickets to the fans who are eligible to come. So members, season ticket holders who came to a certain amount of games last season. And obviously this is a process that will be largely repeated when they get back to Camp Nou, because the full season ticket allocation wasn't taken up at Montjuic in the last season and a bit. But what they tried to do to sort of balance that out is sell hospitality tickets at really, really high prices. Now, doing that in, as my son described, a stadium smaller than AFC Wimbledon's with Lamine Yamal not playing was a little challenging. And as far as I'm aware, they didn't sell out those hospitality tickets. Although those who did get there, I suppose it's an interesting curio, at least.
Listen, Andy, you mentioned there that Lamine Yamal did not play. So, bearing in mind that was still before the 10:30 watershed.
Yes.
Tell me about Lamine Yamal's injury and the consternation, the description of it has been causing to him personally and, frankly, among the people who make Trans-Europe Express.
I mean, it's extraordinary to me, Danny, when you bear in mind that so much of what Barcelona and major European football clubs do now is in English, in excellent English. And we see European football clubs like Roma, like Athletic, Club de Bilbao, all of those, Borussia Dortmund, have really great English social media accounts where they can describe stuff very adroitly. They can give proper personality that sometimes you don't get in proper football club accounts in this country, for example. And yet it was described that Lamine Yamal was unable to train or play because he had a pubic injury. I think it meant his pubis. But anyway, they're assessing the extent of the damage at the moment. And it was a big story in Spain last week because Hansi Flick, in keeping with what we were talking about last week with PSG being apoplectic over what happened with Doué and Dembélé away to Ukraine, Hansi Flick had a proper go in English, obviously, about what had happened to Lamine Yamal on international duty. Now, you thought the worst had already happened to him because remember this time last week when Spain were giving an absolutely glorious demonstration in Turkey to beat them 6-0, and the 6-0 really flattered the Turkish team in the end, it has to be said. Lamine Yamal has had the best game of anyone I've ever seen that's missed an open goal in the same game. But he did lose his passport on the way out, which was quite impressive. I mean, it just goes to prove that he may be possibly the best footballer in the world. He's still an 18-year-old. And there was a great footage of him on Spanish telly going through his little trolley suitcase outside the bus, as if he was coming back from a lad's holiday in Tenerife, going, no, still can't find it. So he went back in the dressing room to look for it, couldn't find it, then was outside the team bus with his suitcase open, sort of going through it, and still couldn't find it. And then he got injured later in the week. So
I would say
it turns out.
I'm very grateful that we didn't record, at least not to my knowledge, the pre-show meeting in which younger people than me discuss the various nature of pubic injuries that they've suffered. I have to say, it's not a person of my advanced years can do without a lot of that kind of talk, I'll be honest. Andy, Atletico Madrid win could have been a headline in and of itself, but for a club that bought a lot of talent, they've actually returned to the old school for their victory over Villarreal.
Yeah, and of course, you were asking me, and you were suggesting that maybe because they're away at Liverpool in the Champions League this week, there's been a few changes for that reason. I wouldn't rule that out at all, but it did feel that they needed to win a league game, having taken 2 points from 3 very winnable ones so far, and being a long way short of Barcelona and Real Madrid, even at this early stage, because of that. So not only were there only 2 new signing starters, so Ruggeri, the left back, and Nico Gonzalez, who came in from Juventus and scored the second goal in the 2-0 win yesterday. It was the fact that Koke started and Griezmann started. And so it felt like, the big boys were there to, make sure everyone zipped up the tent and, took the buckets to the cesspit and all that sort of stuff that you normally do on Cub Camp. So they would do everything correctly. And they really did, because Villarreal is possibly their most difficult game of the season. They had some tough bits. Villarreal created some chances. Nicolas Pepe's in great form at the start of the season. They hit the crossbar as well. But Atletico managed to get the business done, and they really needed to, even at this early stage.
Listen, my star of the week in Spain takes us back to the dawn of time, really, with football, because I'm picking the 37-year-old, well, he's coming up 37, Alexis Sanchez. Lost to football last season, couldn't even get a game. Now has joined a Sevilla club that look like they're in the can completely. They played Elche on Friday night, managed, of course, to get themselves into a losing position. Then Alexis created the equaliser right at the end for Pepe Fernandez. So in the interests of the old boys, I'll keep Alexis Sanchez as my star of the week. Who was yours, Andy, in Spain?
Mine's Pablo Fornals, another former Premier League star, because A, he scored a header, and B, it was worth a point. Betis were 2-0 down in 10 minutes away at Levante and came back to draw 2-2 thanks to Pablo.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, as I said a few minutes ago on the show, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Champions League action. In the next half hour, Andy and I will preview an amazing programme of games. This new format has thrown up at this stage some incredible fixtures. Next, we'll talk about those involving the England team, the teams from England, all 6 of them. Yeah, listen, why don't you join Gareth A. Davis, Spencer Oliver and Paul Smith on a special edition of the TalkSport Daily podcast as the boys pay tribute to one of Britain's greatest fighters, Ricky the Hitman Hatton. And you can watch the podcast on the TalkSport Boxing YouTube channel or listen from 5 a.m. tomorrow on your favourite podcast provider. Well, the Champions League is back, and whether you like it or not, England have a tremendous influx of teams into this first well, the league stage as we call it now. We'll talk about the other ties in about 15 minutes. But Andy, with a full half dozen English clubs in the Champions League stage, we haven't got much time to preview them, but of course most of them have got really, really interesting ties. Let's start briefly with Liverpool against Atletico. Yeah.
I mean, one of 3 England v Spain ties, 4 England v Spain ties, actually, which is really interesting. Now, look, we know Atleti have had great times at Anfield. If we go back to that game in 2020, after which Marcos Llorente, A, made his Atletico career, and B, named his dog after his dog, famously called Anfield, after he scored 2 goals in that game to send Atletico through to what turned out to be the final 8 in Lisbon. But I think where Atleti are at the moment and where Liverpool are at the moment, Liverpool are playing them at exactly the right time. Atleti are not the Atletico of previous incarnations. They're easier to get behind. They defend a little higher up, which to me feels really good for what Liverpool are able to do. And it feels like a Mo Salah kind of game for me. It's going to be super hard for Atleti there, I think.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I guess you'll be going, I suspect, to the game in Newcastle, where they take on Barcelona.
I will. And like, what a huge moment. And the fact that it's happening one day over the 28th anniversary of that game, the Tino Asprilla game at St James's Park, is beautiful in terms of history. Obviously, everyone here is hugely excited about it, especially with Nick Voltemade having made such a good start, although not quite suggesting he could Asprilla it. He is, I think, a player who will really thrive against Barcelona's defence. The other way that they're going to be able to test Barcelona's defence, because Voltemade can drop and play the ball, they have plenty of players with the pace to run onto that. And you look at Alanga, you look at Gordon, you look at Harvey Barnes. I think that's a really interesting challenge. And I think how Barcelona deal with that Newcastle midfield, which is quite physical, would be very interesting as well, especially as they've more in terms of personnel than it looked like they might have a couple of weeks ago. From the Barcelona perspective, look, I don't ask for a lot. I'm really hoping Lamine Yamal's fit, because I just want another look at him at first hand. Is that simple? And it seems unlikely if he's not been training and playing. But there's a few of these we don't know about, Danny. Now, if we can quickly flip over to Athletic versus Arsenal, which is going to be an incredible occasion in Bilbao, and I'm quite jealous of those Arsenal fans who are going to be going to that. It really is a cathedral of football. The question
I think Spurs fans can back that up for you, Andy.
Yeah, exactly. So if we go back to that Turkey Spain game from this time last week, of course, Nico Williams went off in that as well, although he didn't lose his passport, which is a plus. And the injury that he seems to have sustained to his thigh muscle normally means 2 or 3 weeks out, but Athletic have been very cagey on it. So there is a little bit of your brain that is saying, well, maybe they left him out totally yesterday against Alaves, a game in which they looked a bit flat and lost 1-0 to an Alex Berenguer own goal. You think, well, maybe they're holding him back for this big Champions League game, because to have both him and Iñaki, to have both Williams brothers involved would be fantastic. Look, they've become a really, really good side under Ernesto Valverde. They've been ready for the Champions League for a while. And of course, because of the way they went out against Manchester United, and especially the way they played in the home leg of that, where they completely killed their chances in the first leg, for them to have another go at a Premier League team, and a big Premier League team straight away, I think is perfect for them, and they'll be really keen.
Big fun in East Manchester, where City, nudging their way towards recovering their team after a poor season last year, take on a Napoli team that's in great form and studded with former Manchester United rejects.
Yeah, it is, which is absolutely huge. I mean, you're thinking about the return of McTominay, you're thinking about Rasmus Højlund, as we were talking about earlier. And really, I think after everything Rodri has gone through injury-wise, and we've talked about, how ready is he for Manchester City? How ready is he to play every game? We talked about the toughness of Newcastle's midfield against Barcelona. Barcelona, by the way, who are missing Frankie de Jong at the moment. He came back injured from the international break, so it'd be interesting to see if he plays at St James's. I think City are going to have a big task against this Napoli midfield. I think you look at Lobotka, who's absolutely brilliant. Andre Frank Zambo-Anguissa, who it feels like we talk about week after week after week, just to get it in people's heads how good he is. Then you add McTominay to the mix as well. There really is a lot of strength there. The sort of strength that you would normally expect from a Premier League team, which I think tells you a lot about how the experience of working in England affected Antonio Conte.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Absolutely. Meanwhile, Chelsea, the world champions, take themselves to a very, very difficult task. They go to Munich.
Yeah, they do. And I think there are a couple of interesting points here. Look, Bayern on any given day can take the game away from you in the first half at the Allianz Arena. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Having said that, it doesn't feel like they're a very good Bayern side, but it doesn't feel like they're the greatest Bayern side. There are a few little weaknesses. I think Konrad Laimer playing at right back is part of that. I think those wide areas are somewhere really where you could get at them. And I wonder if there's a bit of wisdom in maybe letting Cole Palmer peel off to one of the wings to make things happen. Look,
they don't have Musiala. Speaking of Cole, they don't have Musiala. So that's a kind of imbalance as well.
No, that is true. Although Serge Gnabry had a great international break, scored the opener against Hamburg from a ridiculous angle. He's in really good form at the moment, so that's something to look out for.
And finally, in this section, somehow I can't believe it, Andy, but you're about to make Spurs against Villarreal seem positively mundane, unglamorous.
Well, no, I'm not. I'm really looking forward to it. I'll be there on Tuesday night, and I just wonder with Villarreal, who have lost a big player in Alex Baena this summer, as well as Cherno Barry, of course, went off to Everton. It feels like they've replaced them quite well. They've started this season very well. Like I said, despite the fact they went down at Atletico yesterday, I didn't think they played badly at all. They had a lot of that. I think when we're looking at the North London side of it, Nicolas Pepe, as I said, has played very, very well in the opening part of this season. 4 players who used to play for Spurs and Arsenal coming back to North London with Villarreal. Yeah, I think you look at the replacement for Bayern, Molero, who came across from Las Palmas. He's looked very promising, and of course George Mikatadze, who came from Lyon. Now, if he was playing Ange's Spurs, you look at his pace and his movement, he would be rubbing his hands. It might be a bit tougher for him against Thomas Frank's Spurs.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the game. I'm looking forward to all those games, to be honest. And do you know what? When you look at the ties that don't involve English clubs, they're fantastic as well. We'll get on to those in a second. Let me just give you very quickly the ties that we're covering here on TalkSport. On Tuesday, Athletic Bilbao against Arsenal is over on TalkSport 2. On Wednesday, a double helping for you. Liverpool against Atletico Madrid is here on TalkSport, while Bayern Munich against Chelsea is over on TalkSport 2. And then on Thursday, another bumper edition for you. 8 o'clock kickoffs, both of these. Newcastle against Barcelona on TalkSport and over on TalkSport 2. You can listen to Manchester City against Napoli. I note the only one of the English teams not represented there is Tottenham Hotspur against Villarreal. I'll just have to put up with that, won't I? Because TalkSport is, as we continue to prove, your home of live football. Yeah, as I say, you won't want to miss anything. TalkSport Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 5, count them, Champions League ties for you. And Andy, away from that incredible sextet of English clubs, I don't suppose it'll ever be repeated in this format of the Champions League. There are loads of other amazing ties. Where do you want to start? What about Juventus against Dortmund?
Yeah, I think we can start with that, because I think if you look at the results so far for Dortmund, they look better than the actual performances. It does feel always at Dortmund a little bit fragile, doesn't it? Even though they've tried to bring a bit of stability to it. Of course, there's been the signing of Niko Kovac to the new contract, which has helped as well. They do have a few key injuries. They've got a lot of defenders out at the moment, which I think is a big deal when you're going away to face Juventus, who, again, we don't entirely know what to expect from them, but we do know that they have an attacking armada. So, you look at Jonathan David, you look at Vlahovic, who started yesterday. You look at the fact they've got Lois Openda to come in, Francisco Conceição, Kenan Yildiz, the man who's been given the keys to the team to make it all happen and scored a brilliant goal and was great again yesterday in the Derby d'Italia. I think they've got so many options. And then you look at the fact that Dortmund are missing Schlotterbeck, who's their best defender. They're missing Niklas Zula as well. Emre Can, he's not playing at the moment. So there are a load of people missing for them. So I don't know. You can't really go into the game talking about damage limitation. But to me, it feels that even though Dortmund have started the season quite well results-wise, it feels like it wouldn't be that much of a prod to make it all fall apart, especially with what Juventus showed in that game this weekend.
Yeah, now Inter Milan, of course, were finalists last season, but I wonder what effect that 5-0 whacking has had on the morale of the management and the players. And they've got a tricky enough first tie in their attempts to repeat last season's success. They go to Amsterdam to take on Ajax.
It's one of those on paper ones, really, isn't it? I think you can talk about the atmosphere in the Arena Johan Cruyff, and you also think, well, it's Ajax, European history, all the rest of it. It's not an outstanding Ajax team by any stretch of the imagination.
Inter should have enough here, shouldn't they?
Yeah, they really should. But what they need to do most of all is give Lautaro a rest, as we were saying earlier. He looked absolutely shattered in that game yesterday. And I think you can tell by the team, and we're always talking about the balance between the different competitions, and you can't pick the same team for every one, even at this early stage in the season, as you were saying earlier, Danny. And I think the question is, what can Inter's not entirely first choice team do in this? Now, if we go back to the beginning of last season, what they did really well is managed to knock a lot of teams over in the early part of the league stage, despite the fact that they weren't picking their absolute best gala team for every one of those games. So if they can get out of the blocks with a good result at Ajax, when they are going to change quite a few of the players, you would imagine DeMarco will come in, you would imagine Fratesi would come in, a few of the newer players, Luis Enrique, maybe Sucic will come in. We'll see how much the turnover is. But it did feel like that they were really saving their best team for the Juventus game. So even though Mika Hertz had a really good game this weekend for Ajax, scored a couple of goals for them in their win, it does feel like a bit of a stretch for Ajax unless Inter really, really fail to deliver.
Okay, well, obviously, given the number of people of Turkish extraction, indeed, the number of Turks who live in Germany, any game where one of the Turkish super clubs comes to Germany is an event. Eintracht Frankfurt welcome Galatasaray should be a belter.
Yeah, it should be. And the atmosphere will be incredible. I was there last season in Munich when Galatasaray played there, and the atmosphere was extraordinary. My favourite bit was when the teams came on the pitch to warm up, and there were so many Galatasaray fans there that Manuel Neuer stepped on the pitch. Obviously, the goalkeepers come on to warm up first, and everyone started booing, and you could see Neuer looked around, and he's in his late 30s. He's seen most things. He's like, "Huh? Yeah. We're at home. What's going on?" So it'll be really interesting to see what happens there, especially as Eintracht Frankfurt is known for maybe the best atmosphere in Germany. It is absolutely deafening. And West Ham fans, Spurs fans who've been over there in the last couple of years in various European competitions will tell you that. Chelsea fans maybe too. So the fact that Eintracht Frankfurt are playing so well at the moment as well, there are so many attacking players of quality on the pitch. I mean, we'll wait to see if Osimhen is fit enough to play. Of course, Icardi started this weekend. We'll be talking a bit about him later.
Inevitably.
Don't go to bed early. Don't go to bed early. I don't care if it's Monday tomorrow. Come on. Icardi watch is on the way. I think if you look at Osimhen coming back, that's a real big deal because, he was bought for moments like this. He was bought for the Champions League.
Listen, Andy, I can't go to bed early because not only is there American football, but of course the World Athletics Championship in Tokyo, the morning session goes on till 3:45 this morning.
Danny, can I tell you how committed I am to doing Trans-Europe Express your way? Now all the football is finished, I'm now watching NFL Red Zone in French.
Very, very good indeed.
Thank you.
And I should tell people, this is, I hope, Andy, not letting any secrets in. Andy and his family are going to make their way to the Republic of Ireland for a small holiday in the near future. Attention, the producer of this programme. We're both going to be doing it in my house. We're going to do Trans-Europe Express live from Kelly Castle. I can't wait for that. Should be great fun. Producer clutches head about the technologies there. It'll be fine. It'll work out great. Don't worry about that. Real Madrid host Marseille, but the ones I'm really interested in, Andy, the three Champions League debutants, Union Saint-Gilloise, Bodo Glimt and Paphos, none of them were given really a sort of crack team, a sort of elite team, a cream team for the first one. Union have a Benelux derby. They play PSV.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that's the thing. When you look at not being used to the stage, I think they're all quite sneakily difficult games. So you look at the fact that Paphos are going to Olympiacos, talking of huge atmospheres.
Huge cultural, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Bodo Glimt are going to Slavia Prague. Again, it'll be noisy. And as you say, Union going to PSV, who, despite the way they went out against Arsenal in this competition, are capable. There's no doubt about that. I know what you're going to say, capable of defensive chaos. Yes, they are, Danny, but they're also really great to watch. Now, we'll come to that a little bit later when we talk about what PSV were up to yesterday. But really, I think for these teams that have never been in the Champions League before, it's about managing the occasion. Now, especially in the case, I think, of Bodo Glimt and Union Saint-Gilloise, they have worked season on season on season to get here, and they've done well in other European competitions. So you're looking at semi-finalists, quarter-finalists in other competitions, which is already a remarkable achievement. I feel like both of them have really, really earned this moment. But exactly, this is sort of replete with danger, isn't it? A sort of game where you think, oh yeah, we can take these, but the other team is really used, and the other club is really used to being in the Champions League and going deep in it. So you're talking about the only Greek team to have won a European trophy, and of course one of the 3 Dutch teams to have actually won the whole thing.
Listen, thank you very much indeed, Andy. Wow, that second hour has flown by. And yet, incredibly, we have a huge amount of stuff to get through in the third. Tim Vickery will join us for a half an hour. We doubled the Vickery content because there's so much to talk about following the end of the South American World Cup qualifiers. Then we'll preview some of the best ties from the Europa League and the conference. And Andy will tell you which team is going to win both those competitions. Then we'll take you around the league and what will be a hurry-scurry final 60 minutes of Trans Europe Express.
Wondered why Erling Haaland scores a hat-trick instead of just 3 goals? Why Darwin Núñez is said to have missed a sitter rather than just missing a really easy shot? Or why on earth defenders are said to park the bus? Let's break down some of our favourite football cliches. First, let's talk hat-tricks. The term comes from cricket back in the 1800s. Any bowler who managed to get 3 successive wickets used to be rewarded with a hat from their club. Next up, if you see a skillful tackle, an athletic save or a 40-yard screamer, you might say these things are out the top drawer. That's because back in Victorian times, if you had wealth, valuable stuff, you kept it in the top drawer of your dresser, so loaded families became known as top drawer. Remember the last time your team left you feeling as sick as a parrot? The image of the sick bird is thought to come from a classic British comedy moment, Monty Python's Dead Parrot sketch, but the phrase was first used in football by Liverpool defender Phil Thompson. He supposedly said it after Liverpool lost to Nottingham Forest in the 1978 League Cup final. Forest won thanks to a controversial penalty given away by a Thompson foul, even though it was actually outside the box. Poor guy said he felt sick as a parrot afterwards. Is there anything more embarrassing than a nutmeg in football? Weird name, but it's actually related to the trading of nutmeg, the spice. It was so expensive back in the day that corrupt exporters used to try and mix in a bit of wood in with the nutmeg to cut their costs. The term soon became slang. If you were nutmegged, it was because the person you were buying off had pulled a fast one on you. Jose Mourinho brought a lot of things to English football, and seems like one of those was the phrase "park the bus." He used it after his Chelsea side had been held to a goalless draw by Spurs in 2004. Tottenham had been extremely defensive, not trying to score, but making sure Chelsea couldn't either. Mourinho actually said, "They brought the bus and left the bus in front of the goal," as we say in my country. Finally, another phrase that actually comes from cricket. Footballers are said to have missed a sitter if they miss an easy chance. In the late 19th century, it was used in cricket to describe a moment when a fielder failed to take a catch which was so easy they should have been able to catch it sitting down. So there you have it, some of your favourite footballing cliches. And if you think this video is all over, well, it is now.
Yeah, welcome back, one. Welcome back, all. Willkommen, bienvenue. Kate Mila Fulcher to the third and final hour of tonight's edition of Trans Europe Express with me, Danny Kelly, and Andy Brassell. Lots to get through in this final hour, including previewing the Europa League and the Europa Conference. Andy will take you around the leagues as well. Soon we will be joined by one of the person who makes this part of the show really, really tick. But first of all, Andy, let me tell you how shocked the production team are to hear that in a month's time you'll be here doing the show. There's two of us in one building. They seem to be reeling there in the control room. Welcome one, welcome all to Trans Europe Express. Maybe, just maybe, we can get Tim Vickery over here as well to complete the number. But right now, he's back there, of course, in Brazil, waiting to talk to us. Good evening, Tim.
Not till March, Danny, not till March, but let's make a date for it. Let's make
all
a
right,
date for it then.
I'd love that, my friend. Tim, the long
Can I just stop the presses? Can I just before? Can I stop? Stop the presses. Stop whatever you're doing. Whatever you're doing, stop. He's done it. Angel Di Maria, playing for his hometown club, Rosario Central, against Boca Juniors. It doesn't get much more glamorous than that. Has scored direct from a corner. Angel Di Maria, he has scored direct from a corner against Boca Juniors. On and on and on this man goes. It is wonderful. Do you know who started the game playing up front with him?
Go on.
Alejo Vélez.
Oh, the
Remember him?
Tottenham.
Yes.
Yes, owned by Spurs, but not very much wanted by Spurs, as far as I can see.
Flack that I got from Tottenham fans when they bought him, because I'm saying, I don't think he's quite there yet. Anyway, he's limped off, so it's been an unhappy afternoon for him. He limped off before half time. But Angel Di Maria, what a story. And you just wonder, because they can't replace him. Is Scaloni, the coach of Argentina, just going to have a word and say, look, come on.
Got to.
Come back.
Well, Tim, I don't know if you were listening earlier on, but Di Maria's former teammate in Madrid, Luka Modric, even older, scored the winner tonight for Milan against Bologna.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic.
It is.
And to think that in 1970, many considered that Pelé was all washed up at 29. How times have changed.
Absolutely. Tim, what I can only describe in the words of Paul McCartney as the long and winding road to World Cup qualification in South America, with the exception of one of the teams who have to play an intercontinental playoff game, has finally come to an end. Tell us all, my friend.
Yes. This time last week, we cleaned up all of the automatic qualifying places, which went to Argentina, Ecuador, Colombia, Uruguay, Brazil and Paraguay. How interesting to note that had this been any other previous World Cup, Brazil, who finished fifth, would go into a playoff. It's their worst World Cup qualification performance ever. So what was left to be decided was the playoff position. And it was between Bolivia, who haven't been at a World Cup since USA 94, and Venezuela, who have never been to a World Cup. Venezuela had an advantage. If they won at home to Colombia, it was theirs. And they got a terrific home record, unbeaten at home. In their 8 previous home games, they conceded just 2 goals. Colombia had just qualified the previous Thursday. Maybe they'd overdone it on the fizzy pop. Surely this was going to be Venezuela's time. But they could be overtaken. If they failed to win, they could be overtaken by Bolivia beating Brazil at home at the extreme altitude of El Alto, more than 4,000 metres above sea level. And, Venezuela were straight out, 1-0 up after 3. Then it was 2-1. They were 2-1 up after about 11 or 12. So you're thinking, it's going to be there. It's going to be theirs. It's going to be theirs. Oh, no. Sometimes winning is the hardest word. Sorry, I think I always find quite easy, really, maybe because I have so many opportunities to say it. But winning is hard. You know, if you're not used to it, the victory gates are there, the arches are there, and they're so close, but they seem so far away because Venezuela collapsed after Colombia equalised. Venezuela overcommitted. And in the second half, it was just blasted away from them. A fellow called Luis Suarez, not the Uruguayan Luis Suarez, Colombia's Luis Suarez, who's bounced around a little bit unglamorously and is now at Sporting Lisbon in Portugal. He helped himself, it was his first start of the campaign, he helped himself to 4 goals, all on the break. As Venezuela overcommitted. And Venezuela lost 6-3, which unfortunately, losing 6-3 in this case is not the first set. It is game, set and match. Because with the aid of a VAR penalty, Brazil went down 1-0 to Bolivia. So Bolivia have just taken that place. Venezuela lost the last 3 games when it was so close for them. And I feel so sorry for some of their stalwarts, especially Big Rondon. You know, the big centre forward who's their all-time top goal scorer. He got their last goal in this crashing defeat, but I don't think we'll be seeing much of him again, and he won't be around. I think for even with 2030, with so many teams qualifying, it's difficult to see how they can patch him up for that much longer. So heartbreak for Venezuela, but it's Bolivia who now have a chance in March in the playoffs, possibly to the relief of FIFA. Given the US stance against Venezuela,
sure,
FIFA may well be relieved that it's Bolivia who have got through. It isn't. I suppose you would say it is altitude, because all but 3 of Bolivia's 20 points came at home. The away win was at Chile. there are some interesting young players coming through from Bolivia. They're not total idiots. They're not total rubbish. They won't be favourites, I think, going into the playoff, because I think it's 6 teams from different continents fighting for 2 places. But they've given themselves a shot. And for a team that hasn't been to the World Cup since the last time it was North America, that was greatly celebrated.
Tim, tell us a bit about the Brazilian angle on that defeat in Bolivia. Not particularly ruinous to them, of course, because they're home and hosed. They're at the World Cup. But it's a strange thing when you see Carlo Ancelotti angry, like genuinely angry, because he's normally so calm. He's on top of things. He understands the political machinations of football. He doesn't really let stuff get to him because he's so experienced. He's quite sanguine. He wasn't after this. Is this the first time Brazil have seen him properly angry since he's been in charge?
Yeah, it was a little bit of a kind of welcome to South America moment, because as well as the altitude that he's on, he's never seen anything like that in his life. When Bolivia took the lead, the penalty came just before half time, and it was soft. Actually, Brazil's refereeing expert thinks it was a penalty, and it's the kind of penalty that gets given every week in Brazilian league football. But I wouldn't have given it myself. It was Bruno Guimarães, just left a trailing foot there. He looked straight to the referee. You could see he was worried. But I understand that, and if I was Ancelotti, I wouldn't be very happy with the penalty decision. But what I think would have made him more angry was the kind of welcome to South America antics. Quite often, and this happens all over the place. You know, when the home side is winning, the ball boys just kind of disappear. Where are the ball boys gone? Where are the balls gone? Where are the ball boys gone? Well, FIFA have tried to crack down on that kind of thing with this multiple ball system, you know, having balls around the... What may well have happened, what seems to have happened, is that some of these were kind of deflated a little bit. You know, so... yes.
Football's got its own deflate gate. This is very exciting.
Indeed, yeah.
Well done, Andy. Again. Very good knowledge there, American football. Very good.
And there was one moment where Brazil were attacking down the right. Estevão would come off the bench, and someone I think in the crowd threw on an extra ball just to confuse matters. So it was all, and this happened. This isn't just Bolivia. This can happen anywhere in South America where you're protecting a lead. I well remember a coach, Brazilian coach, who I very much respect, saying, giving a lecture to other coaches and saying, you've got to remember that the ball boy is a player as well. You know, wow. Just my heart sunk. Even him, even you, Brutus, you know, plunging the knife into the ball to deflate it just that little bit more.
And I guess we should mention Argentina, because we've said that the things that are against them retaining the trophy in the United States, take away the climate and all the rest of it, is that Messi is 3.5 years older, and they maintain exactly the same back five as won the thing, somewhat fortuitously, last time out. But a chance to see what they might do without them this week, because, of course, Christian Romero was suspended. I mean, he could have written that sentence any time in the last 5 years. And Otamendi, too, was suspended eventually because he got sent off. So... is there any, Romero has to play, obviously, but is there anything else they can do about that defence?
Well, and Otamendi will be suspended from the first game in the World Cup because he got a straight red. So that is going to force Scaloni to concentrate his mind. I mean, it was Balerdi is the obvious favourite, and he started this game in the absence of Romero. He could start in the absence of Otamendi.
Yeah,
and he seems to be the man in waiting. Do you really trust him under pressure?
No.
But then, as they showed last time, you can't win and you can't lose the World Cup in the opening game. You know, Saudi Arabia beat them first time up last time, but it is. I agree. It is the big worry that no one has appeared really to plug that gap. And you've also got to remember that they are trying to do something which has never been done before. No one has ever retained the World Cup in a different continent. You know, Italy retained it in 1938 in Europe. Brazil retained it in 1962 in South America. North America is a long, long way away. As I never tire of telling people, the distance between Buenos Aires and Mexico City, let alone the venues in the States and Canada, just Buenos Aires to Mexico City is further than that between London and a number of cities in India. They're different hemispheres, very different climates, very, very different places. So the scales of history are weighed against them. Having said that, they found solutions. And Scaloni, during the World Cup, he kept on finding solutions.
Absolutely.
And he's kept on finding solutions during this qualification process to the aging of Messi. The best performance of the whole thing was when they just demolished Brazil. And Messi wasn't there. It was.
And we should know. When I finish criticising, and we have to go to a break, Tim. Sorry, we should note that Argentina ran away with the qualification league. They absolutely ran away with it. So there's nothing wrong with Argentina. I'm just pointing out, if you wanted to pick at threads that would say they can't repeat what they did in Qatar, then maybe that's where it is. Listen, Tim is staying on. Thank you.
Do you know the last time they ran away with the qualification? 2002. 2002. What happened then? Out in the first round, and Brazil nearly didn't qualify, ended up winning the thing. The only point of qualification is to get over the line.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Tim. More from Tim, who's agreed to stay on for another 15 minutes, talk about some club matters in South America as well. You're listening to Tim Vickery, Andy Brissell, and rather less importantly me, Danny Kelly, here on Trans Europe Express. Now then, people, the countdown is on. This is your chance to win £25,000 and tickets to see Oasis at Wembley on Saturday, the 27th of September, 2025. This Friday, we're calling two lucky listeners on air who'll go head-to-head for the cash. Both will score the tickets, but only one will walk away with £25,000. Listen up, because here's how you can enter.
18 plus, UK excluding Northern Ireland. For a chance to win, text the word Oasis to 83338 and you're in the draw. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You must have the bill payer's permission. Or you can enter for free by calling 0330 880 treble38. All entries must be received by the 19th of September at 9 a.m. This is a TalkSport limited promotion run on TalkSport, Talk and Virgin Radio UK stations. Full terms and conditions at talksport.com.
Yeah, welcome back, everybody. Tim Vickery is still with us. Tim, where do you want to go next in this all-encompassing walk through South American football?
Well, I think we have to go to our Champions League. When your Champions League just kicks off its group stage this week. Ours, the Copa Libertadores, we now enter into the final straight because it's the quarterfinals that kick off this week. First legs this week, second legs next week. And the fascinating thing here is national teams, it's been all Argentina. Now, Argentina with the World Cup, the last two Copa Americas. The club game, it's been all Brazil. And the last 6 versions of the Libertadores have been won by Brazilian clubs. 4 of those finals, all Brazilian affairs. Unprecedented domination. Could we see a reverse this year? Well, it's possible. Because the last 8, all 8 of them, former champions. We have 1 team from Ecuador. We have 3 from Brazil and 4 from Argentina. So Argentina have a little advantage.
Wow.
Numerical advantage going into the quarterfinals. And there are 2 ties that just absolutely leap out because there are 2 direct Brazil against Argentina confrontations. The most glamorous this week in Buenos Aires in what is now the biggest stadium in South America, River Plate against Palmeiras of Brazil. These are 2, but both of these sides were in the Club World Cup just a couple of months back. You know, this is a real clash of giants, and there have been some fantastic games between them in recent years. So that's a huge one, and that should be a festival. One that might be a little bit darker, with perhaps ball boys and so on going on. And I would think more on the Argentine side than the Brazilian side. But this one is first leg here in Rio this week, second leg in Argentina next week. Flamengo against Estudiantes. Now, Estudiantes are awkward. There's some money there. They've got a fellow, an American businessman who used to be involved with Liverpool. They've got an injection of cash from him. So there's a little bit of money there, but they've built a pragmatic side. And that pragmatism that can condense the play and can be very difficult to play against. Now, that pragmatism is going to be very, very tested against Flamengo, who have a squad of such depth now that it's hard to see long term how many in the continent, even in Brazil, will be able to compete with them. But the beauty of cup football, when last year Flamengo were knocked out by Peñarol of Uruguay, it was unbelievable. I couldn't, if I hadn't been there myself, I wouldn't believe it. Peñarol, they were quite an old side, and they were a side without really a counter-attack, and they managed to win 1-0 on aggregate with a goal on the counter-attack. I remember we were talking about this on Brazilian TV. Usually counter-attacks are fast, don't they? They managed to win with a slow counter-attack. It's one of those bizarre goals I've ever seen. Anyway, so cup football always leaves that little bit of hope that there could be an upset. So they're 2 massive Brazil versus Argentina ties. There's the guarantee of 1 Argentine side in the last 4 because Vélez Sarsfield and Racing meet. Neither very impressive in the previous round, but they've got here. So one of them will be in the last 4. And the other one, Liga of Quito, or LDU, with the advantage of 2,800 metres altitude against Sao Paulo of Brazil. First leg is in Ecuador, so there's real pressure there on Liga to build up a lead that they can defend in Sao Paulo in 10 days' time. So 4 from Argentina, 3 from Brazil, 1 from Ecuador. The other competition, the Europa League equivalent, the Copa Sudamericana, is much more democratic, if you like, because in that one we've got 2 from Brazil, 1 each from Argentina, Bolivia, Ecuador, Colombia, Peru and Chile. The Chile one, the Chile side, is Universidad de Chile, who got their place on a walkover. You remember me telling you about the hideous violence in the game between Independiente of Argentina and Universidad of Chile. Now, I was thinking and maybe hoping that both of them were going to get kicked out. In the end, it was Independiente who got kicked out, although the whole thing was started by supporters of the visiting Chilean side. CONMEBOL decided, I think, that because Independiente were responsible for the sale of tickets and the way that had been organised, that Independiente should bear responsibility. So they've been kicked out, and Universidad of Chile go on. And they're up against Alianza Lima of Peru, which gives them a real chance of getting to the last 4. So there's a much more spread basis of countries involved in the Sudamericana. But the main event, without any doubt whatsoever, is the Libertadores, where it's basically Brazil versus Argentina, with 1 team from Ecuador representing the rest of the continent.
So, Tim, I wanted to ask you briefly, in terms of the draw for the Libertadores, have they already made the draw for the semi-finals, or do they do it round by round? It's not like the Champions League, or it is?
Yeah, yes, they've already made the draw for the semis.
So is it possible for, I'm supposing, the 2 favourites, Flamengo and Palmeiras, to play each other in the final, or would that be a semi if they both go through? Because it's quite interesting the way that Flamengo really showboated after they got further than Palmeiras and actually rubbed it in against all the Rio sides, didn't they, to say, how's the weather over there back home while we're enjoying it in the States?
Definitely.
And I'm presuming there is like a little bit of hangover from that, and certainly a desire for revenge.
Yeah, well, they're in different halves of the draw, and the smart money at the moment would be on a Flamengo Palmeiras final. And the way that it works is whoever comes out of Sao Paulo and Liga of Quito will play whoever comes out of River Plate and Palmeiras. Okay. Well, it's Flamengo against 3 Argentines. If they get through Estudiantes, they're up against the winners of Vélez or Racing. So that's all been worked out. The semi-finals are next month, and then the final is back in Lima in Peru. Towards the end of November. The final of the other one, the Sudamericana, they've just changed the venue of that one. It was going to be in Bolivia, but the stadium's not going to be ready in time, so they've switched that one to Asunción in Paraguay. And when I say Bolivia, I don't mean altitude in Bolivia. I mean low-lying Bolivia. So no need for the oxygen tents for that one.
Tim, a last question. What's your dog called?
Yeah, he's well. Sometimes I call him Didier Dogba, but he's my stepdaughter's dog, and she calls him John for reasons. And she's just about, unlike the Colombians, she's just about realised where the H should fall in John. The Colombians love calling people John, but they don't really know where the H should go. So they just kind of throw it in randomly. They know there should be an H there somewhere. So we'll just kind of throw it in randomly and hope that it ends up in the wrong place. So quite a few of the Colombian Johns are J-H-O-N.
Well, listen, thank you very much for your contribution and that of Jahan as well this evening here on Trans-Europe Express. Yeah, I've been keeping up to date with the big game in the NFL, but there's more NFL action later this morning when you can listen to the Atlanta Falcons at the Minnesota Vikings live on TalkSport 2 after our show from just after 1 o'clock in the morning. That's live NFL on TalkSport 2 just after 1 a.m. Which takes us, Andy, to having already done a pretty, amazing amount of great games going on in the Champions League, but also there's the Conference and, of course, the Europa League, held by Tottenham Hotspur. Where do you want to start here, Andy? Why don't you tell me what the coefficients tell you about the likely winners of these tournaments?
Well, I think that's the interesting thing to look at the favourites. Of course, the Champions League is different this week, just as with last year. To get it off to a real bang, the decks are cleared just for the Champions League this week. And that's why we've got commentaries on TalkSport on Tuesday, Wednesday and Thursday. And Newcastle-Barcelona is obviously the highlight of Thursday because it's just Champions League. So that means we have to wait till next week for the Europa League and the week after for Conference League as well.
Yes.
So I think the interesting thing is, I think more for the Conference League, which we'll come to in a minute, than the Europa League, you're looking for a reason why an English team wouldn't win it. Now, I think there are a couple of things to note with the Europa League. Firstly, the fact that according to the eggheads and the supercomputers, the English team that you don't think is going to win it has got the best chance of winning it. So we're going to, I think, lean on the Opta predictions for this because it's really interesting, the predicted finishes in terms of probability of winning it. But the Europa League is a little bit more open, I think, for a couple of reasons. Firstly, you have a better quality of opposition in it for the English teams. And I think with the Conference League, you're looking for a real reason why the English club won't win it. Not so much in the Europa League, but quite apart from the fact that you've got Rangers and Celtic in it, in the Europa League, that you have Fenerbahce, which I think is a big deal. Of course, we'll talk about them in the other leagues in a little bit. The way that Opta have brought it out for the favourites for the Europa League, I think, is really interesting. So in order, you have Villa as the favourites, then you have Lyon, Roma, Nottingham Forest, Lille, who did very well in the Champions League last season, we have to say that, Bologna, who, again, lost important players this summer, Porto, who are an interesting sleeper, and Feyenoord. That's your top 8. As stands. So that statistically, according to Opta, those are the 8 teams who should finish in the top 8 and therefore get themselves a little bit of time off next February. I don't know how you feel about that, but for me, I'm looking for squad depth when it comes to this.
And you pressed straight on the bruise. Last season, as we got into the latter stages of the Europa League, 2 English teams, Tottenham and Manchester United, who were absolutely abject in their own domestic league. What it proved to me as we got through the latter stages and the 2 teams reached the final of Bilbao is that even with injuries piling up in both camps, they still had enough excellent players to take them through to the latter stage, because people said, well, they're weakened. But of course, the other teams are also in the fag end of their season. So they're picking up injuries and suspensions as well. And in the end, I thought, it was a terrible final. Let's admit that before we go on. But in the run to the final, at least United and Spurs were still producing international players who cost a lot of money, who were paid a lot of money, off the bench and out of the nether regions of their reserves in both cases. And that, I think, is the difference at that stage of the season, because every team, whether they're in Premier League or elsewhere, is starting to get ground down, so the squad becomes a bigger and bigger issue.
Yeah, for me, that's why I prefer Forest to Aston Villa, despite Forest's start to the season so far. And that's without even factoring in the whole Ange factor, which
but it's only his first season. It's a great story. It's a great story.
No, you're right.
He wins it again.
The right to defend it is pretty good. The right that Spurs don't have, of course, this season to defend it. But I think when you look at other teams, so some of those that are predicted top 8, when it comes to depth, that's why I would never have Lyon second. That's why, for me, Bologna wouldn't be in there. I think those are big questions. And Lille, even though we know they're they're capable of good things. And, you know, look, for goodness sakes, they held Juventus. They beat Atletico and Real Madrid in this competition last season, and they made it difficult for Dortmund in the playoffs. For me, that's why they are not necessarily teams that should be seen as contenders to go on and win this. So I guess going on to the Conference League is interesting as well, because, of course, as you would expect, in the Opta analyst, Palace are top. In fact, the figure they have here is they have a 49.9% chance of winning the competition and a 66.7% chance of getting to the final. Now, that is remarkable, really, when you're talking about a competition of this size, and that's before you get to the loss of Eze, for example. We know that I think Palace are going to get better. I think Jeremy Pino is going to be a star for them. Look, there's loads of reasons that we can make for Palace being, you know, the absolute ultra favourites of this competition. And it says a lot about the power of the Premier League because, of course, Palace have no European experience to lean on. And I think that's the point here, that Palace have no European experience to lean on. That's the potential leveller in this, isn't it? I mean, I think it was you that said to me a little while ago, the fact that Palace are able to play without the ball a lot of the time in the Premier League. And, you know, they've got the power to catch teams on transitions. They're going to be facing teams that want to sit deep against them.
Absolutely.
And we saw a little bit of that against Fredrikstad, didn't we, in the playoff, that they found it a bit of a head scratcher because this is something that's very, very unusual for them. Now, fortunately for them, not only do they have a great squad and a varied squad, but they also have a very smart coach in Oliver Glasner, who's already won a European trophy, which definitely helps. But I think it's interesting, the drop-off when we talk about that top 8 of favourites, right? These are the top 8 of favourites according to the Opta analyst here. 1, Crystal Palace. 2, Rayo Vallecano. Again, not exactly overburdened with European experience. 3, Fiorentina, you know, it's their competition. We're just playing in it. They still haven't won it yet, but maybe if they reach the final 3 times, they should just get given it anyway. 4, Strasbourg, who are interesting to me because I think you look at, as we said earlier, Liam Rosinia has got a big squad and he's got
very youthful though.
Very well stocked squad and very youthful, which makes me think maybe they've got the legs to go far in this.
Yeah,
is another way of looking at it. 5, Shakhtar Donetsk, of course, great European experience. 6, AZ. 7, Mainz, who haven't been in European football again for ages. 8, Legia Warsaw, a Polish team being the 8th favourite for this competition.
It's funny you should mention the fact that Palace will be playing against teams probably employing a low block to which Palace are genuinely unused in the Premier League. So what they do,
well,
it means
you said that,
yeah, sure, but it means that creative players like Romain Essa may become critical as we head through the season. They have got players at Palace who I think are lock pickers. They're just not generally employed because they tend to hit teams on the break. It'll be interesting to see. And of course, that's the other huge advantage they have is Oliver Glasner. They've got a really, really smart coach, and he will. Oh, these things that we're talking about, they will have occurred to him 5 months ago, and he'll be planning for these games. Absolutely fascinating. I mean, just the thought that Palace are 60% likely to reach the final. You know, and they can add to the array of trophies they've taken to winning. Pick me a winner. I won't ask you in the conference. Pick me a winner in the Europa League.
Well, you know, I'm going to give you Strasbourg for the conference anyway.
Right. Okay, that'd be fun.
And I'm going to give you Forest for the Europa League. That's the interesting one for me. And I would have said that before Ange got there, but it's reinforced my opinion. Look, the fact that Forest have had this shaky start, I think it's more instructive to look at the transfer window. Look at the players they've been able to go out and get. Now, of course, they won't be able to use Amari Hutchinson in the groups. I bet you they use him in the back half. Maybe he's the Cole Palmer in the Conference League for Forest in the Europa League. Who knows?
absolutely fascinating. Can't wait for that to start next week. That's the Europa League, and the conference is the week after, as Andy said. And what I will guarantee you is that loads and loads of those games will be live here on TalkSport, your home. Do I need to remind you once more of live football, where very soon Andy will take you around the leagues as we head, like I was going to say Usain Bolt, but he's a bit old hat now, isn't it? As we head to the finishing line. Andy, before we go around the leagues, I must tell you that the response to our poll has been remarkable tonight. We asked which English team will go furthest in the Champions League this season. Now, these polls on Twitter only allow you to put in 4 slots. So we put Liverpool, Manchester City, Arsenal or other. Now, what we've had since then is an absolute blizzard of complaints from Chelsea fans saying, how dare you, and calling TalkSport all kind of biased things, and indeed some pretty nasty names, because we did not include world champions Chelsea in the poll. My friends, calm yourselves down, calm your skin down. The poll was the idea and the product of our producer, who supports Chelsea. So you'll have to deal with that reality, my friends. No bias here. The Chelsea fan put that poll together, and for what it's worth, 44% of you, and there's thousands of you who have voted, think that Liverpool of the English teams will go the furthest in the Champions League. Of course, I didn't complain about Spurs not being in the list. Then I'm much more equanimous. That's not even an English word, is it? Andy, we've got very few minutes left now to go through around the leagues, but we have to start with Turkey, not least because Andre Onana has made his debut, but also because Mauro Icardi is back in the news.
He is, but we're going to start with Onana because I know you're all dying to know how he got on today in his Trabzonspor debut. He was voted man of the match away at Fenerbahce, and really the scene was set for him to be a star because they went down to 10 men after 20 minutes, after they had a goal rather harshly ruled out by Paul Onuachu, formerly of Southampton, of course.
The big lad.
Yeah, the big lad. And anyway, so 70 minutes plus, well, at least 30 minutes of stoppage time if you're in the Turkish Super League. And Andre Onana made a ton of saves. So he got man of the match, which is funny because he was also kind of responsible for the winning goal, when you bear that in mind. His former teammate, Fred, from Manchester United, had a shot from the edge of the box. Might have been going in, might not have been. Anyway, he didn't manage to quite palm it round the post. He kind of palmed it back into play, and Stefan Szymanski set it up for Yusuf En-Nesyri to score the winner. And the body language on Onana, he just looked a bit sad. But I'm sure he will work out for Trabzonspor, despite replacing a real legend in the starter for Turkey, Uğurcan Çakır.
And meanwhile, tell us the latest from the world, the mad and wonderful and mystical world of Mauro Icardi.
Oh, Maurito, what a weekend for him. Well, just a short little trip to Eyüpspor where he scored the all-important first goal. Like we said, no Osimhen this weekend, got injured on international duty with Nigeria. So for Mauro Icardi, in the last 20 minutes to open the scoring, which eventually saw them to a 2-0 win. Very, very important goal as he's still gradually coming back from injury. But of course, he got to wear the captain's armband. Of course, also, he really showed great connection with the fans, cultural sensitivity. It was the anniversary of the death of Metin Oktay, the most important figure really in the history of Galatasaray, and he paid tribute to him in front of the fans, showing how much he really connects with the club, which people absolutely loved. And when he was stretching his arms out, look, there's all sorts of things that you could do on your international break. If you're a non-picked for international sort of guy, like Mauro Icardi very much is nowadays, you think you could go to Dubai, you could play golf, all of those sort of things. But he went and had his Wanda tattoo covered up. So you remember that Channel 4 programme, Tattoo Fixers, where you had a really terrible tattoo or one of a former partner or wife or husband? Well, he had his covered up very, very comprehensively with a wolf and a couple of crosses. So well done, Mauro. Good job.
Thank you. And as I say, we're heading towards the slightly earlier finish night like Usain Bolt, or more appropriately, Andy, since I watched the men's 100-metre final in the World Championship in Tokyo this afternoon, the new world 100-metre world champion, watched by Usain Bolt, is a countryman of his who has the most glorious name in sporting history. He's called Oblique Seville. So Oblique Seville is now your world 100-metre champion. And you've got a minute or so to tell me about Portugal.
Well, first, I'm going to tell you that Porto are still top. They're still 5 out of 5 now. It took a Samu penalty to beat Nacional. Luis Suarez, who Tim was talking about earlier, scored the winner for Sporting for Melicao, which is his first goal in Portuguese league football, so a biggie for him. Benfica somehow managed to drop a late goal. Dreadful error by Nicolas Otamendi in the last minute to give Santa Clara an equaliser in Lisbon. So everyone's dropped points apart from Porto now. And I said I'd have a word for Peter Bosz, didn't I? Well,
I was going to get you round to the Netherlands. Don't worry.
Oh, okay. Well, look, I'll go straight into that then. 5-3 win for PSV at NEC Nijmegen, which is remarkable, really, for a number of reasons. Another goal for Ruben van Bommel, a couple for Ricardo Pepi, who's really starting to hit his stride, the US striker, after a long injury in his debut season. But it wouldn't be a Peter Bosz game if I didn't tell you, and this absolutely is true, by the way, that 5-3 doesn't tell how exciting and how harebrained it was. It could have been an even closer finish had Tyrone Cherry, of course, formerly of QPR. He scored earlier in this game. He also smashed the crossbar with a penalty when it was already 5-3. That could have brought it back to 5-4. So that was pretty exciting as well. A 3-1 win for Ajax, as I said earlier. But the only team who haven't dropped points so far, Robin van Persie's Feyenoord. Now, they had a game delayed, which they'll be playing on Wednesday against Fortuna Sittard. If they can keep up that 100% record, they'll go back to the top of the Eredivisie.
And I will finish by mentioning the Danish League, where, having mentioned, of course, Nottingham Forest's new manager, Ange Postecoglou, 2 managers ago, Steve Cooper, he has had a great start to his time in Denmark. His Brøndby beat Copenhagen in the big capital derby. So Steve Cooper off and running in Denmark there. Andy, we've got about another minute, so tell me, because I'm always very jealous when you tell me in Champions League weeks of your amazing itinerary and what great games you're going to see personally.
Well, you'll be even more jealous when I tell you I'm going to see Georgi Mikatadze on Tuesday night. Yes, I will be at Spurs versus Villarreal. And then, of course, obligatory Newcastle versus Barcelona at St James's Park on Thursday. Please be fit, Lamine. Come on, please be fit.
Well, you'll probably see some pretty good footballers with or without the presence of Lamine Yamal. But I totally take your point, Andy. I totally take your point. And just to remind you, we've got 5 Champions League games Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday here on TalkSport and TalkSport 2. Don't miss out on. Why would you miss out? This is the one place where you'll get all those games. I say in that poll that we did. And despite the protestations of Chelsea fans, Liverpool are your favourites to go furthest among the plethora of English teams that are in the tournament. I'll be back tomorrow, it still is, at about sometime during H&J about 12 usually, to look after, 1:15 rather, to look after all of the Premier League that we've just seen over the last few days. Coming up next is the best of White and Jordan. Thank you for listening. Thanks for Andy for the last 3 hours. God bless you all, and a very, very good night.